I call this meeting of the Northeast Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. The board will now adjourn into executive session pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Section 551.071, private consultation with the board's attorney, 551.074 to discuss personnel or to hear complaints against personnel, 551.076 discussion regarding security devices or security audits, and the time is 5:30. The board will now convene an open session, and the time is 6:34. On behalf of the trustees, I would like to welcome you to this evening's meeting of the Northeast ISD School Board. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. We appreciate your attendance and request your respectful attention. We welcome your comments during the Matters from the Floor section of the agenda. However, if you signed up to address a specific action item on the agenda this evening, you will be called at that time. We wish to emphasize that this is a business meeting of the board, and while those in attendance may disagree about issues, it is our expectation that everyone will conduct themselves in a respectful and professional manner. Disruptions to this meeting by anyone will not be tolerated. In the event any person or group disrupts the meeting, a warning will be given to stop any disruptive behavior. Anyone persisting in the behavior will be removed from the meeting. The board may also call a recess in the event of a persistent disruption so that individuals who engage in those disruptions may be removed. It is our intent to conduct the meeting in an orderly fashion. Finally, I would like to remind you that it is the mission of Northeast to challenge and encourage each student to achieve and demonstrate academic excellence, technical skills, and responsible citizenship. Item 5, Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance, Bradley Middle School. Ms. Tori Letsky.
Okay, good evening, Mr. President, esteemed members of the board, Dr. Micah and executive staff, and our honored guests. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this evening. I'm Tori Letsky, the very proud principal of Bradley Middle School, and it's an honor to address this group of leaders who are so deeply committed to the success of our students, our schools, and our community. I'd like to take a moment to recognize our incredible school board, especially as we celebrate School Board Appreciation Month. Your dedication, leadership, and tireless efforts ensure that every student in our district has access to exceptional educational opportunities. On behalf of Bradley Middle School, thank you for all that you do to support our students, staff, and our families. Our students and our staff compiled a little something to show our gratitude, and we placed it there in front of you. Okay, next I'd like to introduce two outstanding students who will be leading us in the invocation and pledges tonight. These two students are just a very small demonstration of what our Bradley students have to offer. Leading in the invocation is Benjamin, or Ben Ruiz. He's an 8th grade student who truly represents the heart of Bradley Middle School. Ben has been an A honor roll student throughout all 3 of his middle school years. He's a talented athlete participating in football, basketball, track, and soccer. Ben is also a gifted musician, playing trumpet in our esteemed jazz band, which recently had the honor of performing at the Midwest Clinic in Chicago. Ben was awarded Outstanding Jazz Musician in 7th grade. He's a member of the Honor Band, and in addition, he was awarded the TMEA All-Region Middle School Band for his exceptional trumpet skills. Ben's dedication doesn't stop there. He has been named Bear of the Month twice and has received the Bradley Silver Star Award during both his 6th and 7th grade years. He is joined tonight by his proud family, his parents, Mr. Jose Ruiz, Mrs. Millie Ruiz, and his sister, Juliana Ruiz. Will you all please stand to be recognized? All right, thank you. Leading the pledges tonight is Abigail, or Abby, Shipley. She's a 7th grade student who exemplifies excellence and creativity in everything that she touches. Abby is an A honor roll student and was a student council member during her 6th grade year. She is an accomplished athlete, participating on both the tennis and volleyball teams at Bradley, as well as competing on the San Antonio Juniors Club volleyball team. She was awarded the Bradley Silver Star during her 6th grade year and is also a proud member of the honor band. Abby's talents continue in her digital and written creativity. She has achieved remarkable success in a variety of contests, including first place in the Take Care of Texas video contest, first place in the 5th through 8th grade category of the Celebrate the Mouse Biomedical Research Video Essay Contest. I got that out. Winner of the SBO Plus 2024 Essay Contest, first place in the poem category for the Tian Hong Foundation Cross-Cultural Youth Poem and Art Contest. Abby, thank you for winning all these things that are a mouthful. Good job. Best middle school PSA winner in the We the Future contest. JAL prize winner for the JAL Foundation World Children's Haiku Contest. Honorable mention in the recycling contest by Jason Learning in the poster category, and honorable mention in the 2023 Civics Challenge by the Sandra Day O'Connor Institute for American Democracy. Abby is accompanied tonight by her proud parents, Mr. Wilfred Shipley and Miss Bianca Shipley. Will you all please stand to be recognized? Thank you. These two students, Ben and Abby, embody the excellence, leadership, and the spirit that is Bradley Middle School. We are so proud of them and honored to have them represent our campus tonight. Thank you again for your dedication and for providing the resources that enable us to fulfill our mission. And happy School Board Appreciation Month. We appreciate you. Okay. Ben, come on down.
Good evening. My name is Benjamin Ruiz. I was born here in San Antonio. I've been a student at Bradley for 3 years, and I love it here thanks to all the wonderful programs, educations, and overall environment. First and foremost, I would like to wish you happy NEISD School Board Appreciation Month. I want to express my sincere gratitude for the incredible work everyone does for our school community. As a student who participates in school and is involved in other extracurricular programs, I have experienced firsthand positive effects of your dedication. I would like to thank you for your support for our athletic programs. Being a part of the school's athletic department has not only helped me develop my physical skills, but also taught me valuable lessons about teamwork, discipline, and perseverance. In addition to athletics, my involvement in music has greatly enriched my educational experience. Thanks to everyone's support, the help of my band directors, Carlos Elizondo and Miguel Vilas, the 2023 Bradley Jazz Band, me and my jazz band were able to attend the Midwest Clinic in Chicago last December. This experience was one I wish every student could have, not only because it was exciting, but because it taught me many valuable lessons about the real world. These are some examples of what every student deserves to have. This couldn't have been done if it wasn't for all of everyone's commitment and hard work. I would also like to thank my principal, Mrs. Leitsky, for everything she does for our school. It really wouldn't be the same without her enthusiasm, hard work, and passion she gives every day. I believe she is the best fit at Bradley due to her great leadership abilities and just overall support she has for everyone. In addition, I am honored to be a proud Bradley student. As a student who wasn't zoned to go into Bradley, I was able to attend thanks to our dual language program, which enabled me to improve academically. Before I finish speaking, there is one quote I would like to share with you all today. I can't change the direction of the wind, but I can adjust my sails to always reach my destination. This quote by Jimmy Dean is a powerful reminder that while we may not always be able to control the circumstances we face, we can control our response to them. By adjusting our approach and mindset, we can find a way to navigate through challenging situations to reach our goals. This mindset of adaptability and perseverance is something I've learned right here in the classrooms of my school. Whether it's creating new programs to meet people's needs, finding innovative ways to support struggling students, or simply being there to listen when we need guidance. Your example teaches us that success isn't just about the destination. It's about how we navigate the journey. God bless you for your hard work, passion, and commitment to our school community. Your efforts make a difference in our lives.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the Pledge to the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. You may be seated.
Ben and Abby, if y'all would come forward for a photo. And Ms. Letsky, you too, please. Ben and Abby, thank you so much for being here. Ms. Letsky, thank you for representing Bradley. Y'all are welcome to stay, but you do not have to. So you sound like you're very busy students, so good luck with the rest of the semester. Thank you. All right, item 6, recognitions. We have one recognition next month. It'll be before our next meeting. So the week of February 3rd through 7th is School Counseling Week. So please, we'll send out reminders on the website and through the district about School Counseling Week, but please remember to appreciate and thank your school counselors. Do it all the time, but especially that week. I also want to say that we do have a series of community meetings coming up next week. January 21st, January 22nd, and January 23rd for the school consolidation plan. January 21st is at Driscoll Middle School at 6 p.m. January 22nd, it is Wilshire Elementary School at 6 p.m. And January 23rd is Clear Spring Elementary School at 6 p.m. I just wanted to get that out in the public. All right, item 7, matters from the floor. I have an official thing I'll read here in a second, but really what I just want to say is everybody will get their 3 minutes that have signed up to speak. Just please be respectful of those that are speaking. Let's make sure that we allow people the time to, so that we can hear what they're saying. If you have signs, please keep them low so that people behind you can see. We want to try to get through this respectfully. We want to be able to listen to you. We want to be able to hear what you say, but that's the too long didn't read version of what I'm about to read. So, matters from the floor. The trustees welcome comments from the members of the public during this time of the meeting. Generally, board members do not respond to public comments during the meeting. Although members may request further information for a future agenda item on a matter raised during public comment. As explained fully in the board's written procedures for this time, the matters from the floor portion is a limited public forum. Accordingly, speakers may present on a topic related to district business for up to 3 minutes, but are not permitted to make 1, personal complaints about an individual staff or board member that should be raised using the district's grievance policies, 2, a personnel action, 3, a student disciplinary matter, 4, a complaint about a particular student, 5, or pending litigation. Any person who persists in speaking on these topics after being directed not to do so will lose the remainder of their time to speak and may lose their privilege of addressing the board at future meetings. If you are signed up to speak on a specific agenda item, you will be called up when that board reaches that particular item. Please remember that this is a business meeting of the board, Any person or group engaging in outbursts of any kind causing a disruption to the meeting will be warned, and if they persist, will be removed from the meeting. This is to ensure that all speakers have an opportunity to make comments without interruption, and that the board members are able to pay full attention to speakers without any distractions. We also welcome written comments at any time, either through email at board@neisd.net or by mail, care of the Superintendent's Office at 8961 Tesoro Drive, 6th floor, San Antonio, Texas, 78217. Mrs. Thompson, the Board Secretary, will call your number, and when she does, you'll come up at that time.
Good evening. There are 18 of you, so we'll just be going numerically. Number 1.
Hello all, and thank you for allowing the community a chance to speak on behalf of our schools. My name is Cameron Stevens, and I am a second grade teacher at Clear Spring Elementary. First and foremost, it is my belief that there is one voice that should be heard above all others in this, the voice of the children. I signed up to speak to ensure that I can help some of these kids have that voice heard. I have 3 different quotes from students that were said just today that I want to share with you. The first is, "Time flies when you're with your community and the people you love." This was said to me unprompted when I announced that math was over and it was time to go to specials. Second, "I love this school just like this. I don't want to lose it. I don't want them to take my school." This came from a SPED student who has been to multiple NEISD schools, but his parents tell me he struggled to feel safe in his learning until he came to Clear Spring. He's been bringing up the school closing every day since his parents told him. Lastly, I have the quote, "It's school, but also a second home. It's a safe place to go when I'm feeling lost." This was from a 4th grader I had 2 years ago who still visits my classroom and is a second-generation Roadrunner. Now that I've shared some of the most important opinions, I'm going to take a second to share my own. I am sure you all know what the environment at Clear Spring last year was. Our teacher turnover throughout the school year caused our students to feel unanchored in their own education. Please think of what separating and uprooting these students just 1 year later will do to their relationship with school. This year, you have given these kids an amazing opportunity by bringing in new leadership to us. They have started great systems to embed our students with a sense of educational autonomy and security. Our students deserve some consistency in their education, an uninterrupted school path, and they deserve to keep their home. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Number 2.
Hello, I'm Mara Rodriguez. I'm speaking on behalf of my family. I'm a 7th-year Roadrunner parent. I'm speaking on behalf of the lovely staff who have become an extension of our family. A wise man's parents once instilled in him the value of caring, customer service, and small-town community values, the exact same values that Clear Springs represents. To remove Clear Spring would be removing the heart of this community, to rob the children of their future and the extension of this family would not only be a disservice to the community, to the neighborhood, but the children themselves. Our oldest daughter, who is currently at Kruger Middle School, she was one of the recipients of the Superintendent Award for her 5th grade year. You can see the tone that Clear Spring has set for us as parents, us as staff, us as family, and us just as a community. So taking away Clear Spring would be robbing the community and snuffing out our children's future. Please reconsider this decision. Clear Spring was one of the main components in the incentive of why my husband and I bought our house across the street from Clear Spring 7 years ago. It would be robbing the community of resources, of anything we could possibly need. We turn to staff when we may not have what we need because they are there for us. So please reconsider this. This This would be such a disservice to everyone, not just us, but our son who just turned 5. We're going to be taking him to Kinder Roundup. We've set the tone for our children and let them know that Clear Spring will be there. And hopefully it will still be there for the next 50+ years, which it has already been. Thank you for hearing my words tonight. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.
Number 3.
Good evening. I am Amber Rogers. This is my second son to attend Clear Springs Elementary School. He loves his school, and he loves the teachers and the staff that have stand beside and behind their students no matter what. I have a son that just went into Cougar Middle School who attended that school. He has autism. The last school that he attended, they destroyed him. They made him lose his faith in school and in teachers and in all of it. But when he went to Clear Springs, it changed everything. They listened to him, they believed in him, and they encouraged him. They made him feel like being autistic wasn't a difference, but a unique part of who he was. And now he is growing and he is striving, the same as this one is. Don't close the school. Don't take what has been the most blessed part of my children's lives away. Of all these parents who stand beside this school because the school stands behind them, please don't close our school for us and for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 4.
Good evening, members of the school board. Thank you for allowing me to speak with you this evening. My name is Judy Martinez. I am a member of the NEISD Community Advocates. We are a group of community members who have come together to organize and advocate against the closure of the schools. I am here on behalf of my son, Esteban Martinez. He is a second grader at Wilshire Elementary. Let's start by calling it what it is. It's a school closure. If my second grader cannot attend the school at the end of the block, the school is closed. Calling it consolidation or facility assessment does not change the outcome, and the impact remains the same. 20 years ago, my family moved into Wilshire, the neighborhood. One of the deciding factors for purchasing our home was the fact that the school was at the end of our block. My now 10th grader went through the school, and now it is being ripped away from my second grader. The school is more than a facility, like you guys call it. It is a community where we support, we learn, we grow together. I have personally donated hundreds of hours of my time and my money to this school. We are family. We have asked in the FAQ section, what strategies are going to be implemented for emotional and academic needs? We have asked, how will you transition our special education students? We have asked, how will the traditions that Wilshire carries carry on into the new schools? And all of the answers, every single one of those, we are working together to find the best option as staff. That shows you are not ready. Dr. Micah, last month you mentioned families simply have more options nowadays with school vouchers, private, charter schools. Absolutely. But what have you done to keep more students in our schools? What have you as board members done to bring and keep students in our schools? What specific programs have been brought into specifically these 3 schools in question? Board member Tracy Shelton, you have mentioned how truancy is one of your biggest concerns for our district. Do you honestly believe that by voting yes to close these schools, truancy won't rise to a greater capacity? Students with no need for bus transportation will now be forced onto an overcrowded bus where there are often students riding on the floor. The community The commute for time for parents to get to the schools will be even greater. So what strategies do you have
That's
for
your
these
time.
scenarios? Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 5.
Good evening. My name is Monica Arce, and I am a member of the NEISD Community Advocates. I debated whether or not to speak today, but then my Wilshire student handed me a note, and I felt compelled. The note read, "Be strong, all you who place your hope in the Lord, and never give up." Psalm 31:24. These words resonate deeply, especially in light of my child's journey. At the end of first grade, my child was diagnosed with a learning disability. Despite this, she has excelled, achieving honor roll, perfect attendance, and even the prestigious Wildcat Award, which is given to only one student per grade level at the end of the school year for exemplifying core values and perseverance. What kind of role model would I be if I simply gave up because NEISD has identified 3 of these schools as being at a disadvantage? Some may say my child's reading disability places her at a disadvantage, yet she refuses to give up. With the dedicated support of the special education coordinator and Wilshire staff, she has made incredible strides in reading and has become more confident every day, but these services are critical to her success. It is disheartening to learn that there is no concrete plan to ensure that our children that these services will not be disrupted. There is no assurances that the consolidation plan will protect these essential services that our students rely on if the board approves this rushed consolidation. No amount of money can make up for the damage done to children, families, and staff that will be affected by this. I urge you to pause this vote to reconsider the impact this proposal will have on the most vulnerable among us. We call for an extended community engagement timeline. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 6.
Excuse me, it's my first time. Hello, my name is Samantha Perez. I'm here to speak on behalf of Clear Springs Elementary. I'm hoping and praying that you make the decision to not close Clear Springs doors, as it has been in my family for 20 years. My oldest niece is now 20. She graduated from Clear Springs. And my nephew is 17 years old, had graduated from Clear Springs. It has been a school that's been in my family, like I said, in generations. I currently have 2 kids right now that go to school, and I had 2 that graduated. And their plan is to have their siblings graduate with them. The teachers there, as far as Miss Compton, Miss Gonzalez, Miss Stevens is my 2nd grade son teacher. They are very helpful, and like other people have said, the resources there, we wouldn't be moving on. We wouldn't survive without them. Majority of the parents have a lot of help as far as the snack program and help and after school and choir. It really sets them up to go for Kruger and to start their careers. Miss Martinez has always been help as far as there. My son Anthony wanted to say something, but I'll say it for him. He's praying that y'all guys do not close these doors and these resources. It is a big pillar in our community as far as everything. He plans on his kids going to school if it does stay open. Generations to come. Like I said, my family and I want this school to stay in our family as it has been for more generations to come. And I beg of you to reconsider these schools. Not only are you closing the doors, but you're closing memories, you're closing kids' dreams, and you're closing the futures of thousands of kids to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 7.
Good evening. My name's Clint Hudson. I'm part of the NISD Community Advocates, and my wife and I just recently moved into the district in April. We purchased our first home. We've spent the last few months building relationships in our community, establishing ourselves in our community. And I was extremely disheartened when I saw the news on December 9th that this whole time that we're building these relationships in our community, the district was making plans to destroy that very community that we were becoming established in, destroying it by taking away one of the reasons why we moved there. A middle school, Driscoll Middle School, 5 minutes away, has a huge impact on our home values, on our future. One of the reasons that the district has cited for closing Driscoll Middle School is the declining enrollment. What really upsets me about this metric is, one, the only metrics provided by the district were financial metrics. This isn't a corporation. This is an educational institution. I would like to issue a challenge to Dr. Micah. I would like you to look all these school board members in their eyes and tell them that closing these schools will increase enrollment in Northeast ISD. To the school board, he won't, because he can't. This will not increase the enrollment of Northeast ISD. It's going to do the opposite. This is going to push parents to go to outside the district. It's going to push them to private schools, charter schools, even homeschooling. What this is doing is it's destroying the trust the community has in Northeast ISD. Dr. Mike and the district has given us a hit list of 14 schools that have below 50% enrollment. You can't tell me that parents are going to trust sending their kids to those 14 schools, 3 of which Dr. Mike and the district are trying to close. This is going to further the problems that we have, and so I'd ask the board to do 3 things. The first thing, listen to us. Communicate with us, allow us to have conversations with you to show you the irreparable damage that this will do. The second thing we ask you is to delay the vote. 3 months is not enough time to to be able to decide on the fate of our children. And the third thing that I'd ask you to do is hold Dr. Micah accountable and the district. Do not put this burden on the communities of Driscoll Middle School, Wilshire Elementary, and Clear Spring Elementary. This is not our burden to bear. Dr. Micah has taken this appointment as a superintendent. It's his responsibility to figure out how to solve these problems. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next.
Number 8.
Hello, my name is Rachel Morse. I have a 7th grader at Driscoll Middle School. I have had a child in this district for over 20 years. And I feel very strongly that we need to delay the vote. I feel like we need an equity study. There are plenty of studies out there done by the Fordham Institute that indicate children whose schools closed, and this is not a consolidation no matter what you want to say, they're closed. If they don't go to a school that has a higher performing school, so higher than what we're rated at, which is a C, then they have poorer outcomes. And frankly, you're not being honest with us about where you're going to send our children. We've all heard the rumors, Wood, Garner, or Harris. All of them are lower rated schools. So why would you take our children and put them there, and we will have lower outcomes? These are COVID children who are already behind socially, emotionally, and with their testing scores. We all know it. So I'm sorry, I think you need more information. I understand that people are going to private school and they're going to charter schools, but to take Driscoll out of our community and send our children off to God knows where, because you're not telling us, you're just ripping it apart. There isn't a middle school in that area. There just isn't. You are going to affect my home values. Northern Hills, that community is aging. Those homes are going to turn over. Are you going to come to me in 10 years and ask for bond money for another middle school because you've closed down the one that we have? So I'm asking you on behalf of my 7th grade daughter who has spent the last 2 years working to be concert master at her school and now thinks I'm not going to even get to try because why should I? They won't know me. Why would I want my 7th grader to move into another school for 1 year? She's not going to integrate. It's going to be a wasted year for her. So 3 schools in 3 years, and you're trying to convince me that it's not going to impact her education. Each and every one of you needs to rethink this. Be more creative. Put another magnet school in there or something. We have options. You're just not looking at them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 9.
Good evening, members of the school board. My name is Anaya Reyes, and I am here to speak about the proposed closure at Clear Springs Elementary. I am the mother of 2 boys, one of whom had the privilege of attending Clear Springs, and one who is currently enrolled there. From my personal experience, I can say that finding a school with such an amazing and supportive community is incredibly rare. From the teachers to admin staff, custodians, cafeteria staff, even the bus drivers, everyone at Clear Springs show a genuine care and commitment to our students, to their students. Both of my boys, who are on the autism spectrum, have received exceptional support and guidance here, support that has been vital for their growth and success. As a parent of children with special needs, I can attest that not all schools are equipped to meet the unique needs of our children. We have experienced this firsthand. Other schools lack the resources, training, and staff necessary to provide the levels of support that Clear Springs has consistently delivered. Closing this school would be a grave mistake, not only for my family, but for the entire community. I also want to point out that as far as I know, Clear Spring is not one of the schools operating under 50% capacity, and yet it is on the list for closure. I respectfully ask, what exactly qualifies Clear Springs for closure? Why isn't the data supporting this decision being shared with the parents whose children will be most affected? I strongly urge you to reconsider the decision to close Clear Springs. The impact of our children, on our children and our community would be profound and overwhelmingly negative for the families who rely on this school and its resources and support. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Number 10.
My name is Nikki Shahid, and I'm the proud parent of a Coker Cub, a Bradley Bear, and a Churchill Charger. Last year, my daughter Layla was a Lamar Tiger in SAISD, and sadly, her school was closed down when they went through a similar process. I'm here because I remember the heartache, stress, and uncertainty that came with that time. And so I stand with the NEISD community advocates against school closures, which hurt students, families, and communities. In his 2023 equity audit for SAISD's school closure process, Dr. Terrence Green studied the outcomes for students from 2 SAISD schools that closed in 2015. And he found that student grades, STAR test scores, and reading comprehension suffered for years after a school closure. I urge this board to do an equity audit and look not just at the data around building usage, but also student outcomes as you make this decision, in keeping with the district's core value of supporting each student and achieving academic excellence. Helping students to be well prepared for college, work, and life shouldn't be reserved only for kids who live in the most affluent areas of our district. The children at these 2 Title I schools and middle school that receive CEP funding should also be able to attain those dreams. Dr. Micah and the board speak of transparency and community engagement. Community engagement means listening to the parents, to your constituents, and integrating their feedback into your decision-making process. After hearing from parents from both the closing and receiving schools, when they have all the information they need to show up to these meetings feeling well-informed. Transparency and community engagement is not listening to only a small group of people handpicked by the board. It is not announcing closures in the middle of the busy holiday season with vague, confusing language about consolidation instead of calling school closures what they are. And it is not voting on it just a few short weeks later. Give these students, families, and communities the respect they deserve and extend the timeline on this process. Speaking of timeline, Now that Greg Abbott unfortunately has enough votes to pass his voucher bill, we should have a new budget from the state before the next school year. Again, you're rushing into a process that will hurt academics and property values when increased funding is likely on the horizon. Wilshire, Clear Spring, and Driscoll deserve more time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 11.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Jennifer Tomini, and I do school choice for my daughter to Driscoll Middle School. After being very active in PTA during her elementary years, I knew a lot about the school that we were zoned for, Harris. And I was not comfortable with her going there at all. The school is completely crowded. There isn't any way for admin to know or see problems that are happening. Teachers are overworked. They're completely stressed with way too many kids in their classroom with every class. Kids being overlooked or not offered any help when needed. I knew that Driscoll was the obvious choice for my daughter going into 6th grade when we went to walk the halls last year, and it just felt like home. She had the biggest smile on her face walking through these halls. The staff all had smiles. They had a very cheerful demeanor. They all stepped out in the hallways at class switch, made their presence known, was talking with students while walking through the hallways. You can tell that they are there, they're happy, they like their jobs, and they're just happy to be there. I understand enrollment may be low, but if you're gonna rezone to close this school or any of these schools, why not rezone and move some of the overcrowded kids from the other middle schools to Driscoll, to Clear Spring, to Wilshire? Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Number 12.
Good evening, Mr. President and members of the Northeast Independent School District Board. My name is Teresa Hurd. I'm the Vice President of Northeast Education Association. On behalf of NEA, I want to take a moment to express our gratitude for your dedication to the students, staff, and families of Northeast ISD. Your commitment to public service and your leadership play a critical role in ensuring that our district remains a place where every student has the opportunity to thrive. We understand the weight of your decisions you face and the time and energy you to devote to serving this community, whether it's prioritizing resources for our classrooms, addressing the needs of our diverse student body, or supporting professional growth for our educators. Your efforts do not go unnoticed. The Northeast Education Association stands with you as partners in this important work. Together, we share a vision of empowering the next generation through quality public education and fostering a community where every individual can succeed. Thank you for your steadfast service, your thoughtful decision-making, and your unwavering commitment to making Northeast ISD a district we can all be proud of. We look forward to continuing our collaboration to ensure the best for our students and educators. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 13.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Recently, my name is Deborah Parrish. Recently, I spoke with some NEISD parents who thought the phrase separation of church and state is in the U.S. Constitution. It is not. That phrase was used in a personal letter by Thomas Jefferson. The word church is not in the U.S. Constitution at all. Also, a group of NEISD high school students in an AP government class shared with me that they thought the Electoral College was unfair. The popular vote should be used in elections. When I erroneously reminded them that most people in the U.S. live in only 3 or 4 states, it was obvious they had not even considered that. I found out that half the U.S. population live in 9 states of the 50. Not 3 or 4. By the way, the Electoral College appears early in the United States Constitution. At the beginning, it was Pennsylvania was number 1. Please make sure this founding document is taught in U.S. history and/or government classes in NEISD. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 14.
Good evening, President Byer, members of the board, Dr. Micah. I'm Patsy Esterline representing Northeast AFT. Thank you for your service on this school board since this is School Board Appreciation Month. We are concerned about the 3 possible school closures of Driscoll Middle School, Clear Spring Elementary, and Wilshire Elementary. As you know, each campus is a hub in their community. The schools provide an identity and help form the community for the area in which they are located. On weekends and vacation days, they provide a play area for students and adults. Further, closing schools also usually means losing students. Every step possible to keep these schools open should be taken. It is also a concern that each school had no warning that closure was imminent. Times should have been allotted for each campus to seek solutions to keep the campuses open. Since NEISD is a district of innovation, a wide variety of possible options could be taken. Also, a student recruitment program should have been provided. In view of the lack of warning and in view of the schools not having been given an opportunity to seek ways to keep the schools open, Northeast AFT asks that each campus be given at least 1 year to seek possible solutions for staying open. It's important to support our neighborhoods. Our final concern regards the loss of students to charter schools. When the charter school law passed, it was hailed as causing academic improvement through competition. A part of that competition is taking market share by recruiting students to enroll in your school. Unfortunately, charter schools are competitive recruiters, while NEISD does not actively recruit students. We know that NEISD provides a much better education, but that fact has to be communicated to the students' families who have left NEISD, and it should be in person. Because of this, we urge the school board to enact an active recruitment plan to build back the enrollments of the 3 schools facing possible closure, as well as other Northeast ISD schools, beginning immediately while ensuring that these 3 schools remain open through the next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 16.
Hi, good evening. My name is Sarah Valentin. I am one of the ALE teachers at Clear Spring Elementary, and me and my fellow staff members just have a couple of requests. We would like a list of all the schools, all 70, because we know that all 70 schools were considered in this decision. We would like a list of all the schools showing the data for the criteria that needs to be met to be considered for school consolidation. I feel like there's just a lot of confusion about why these 3 schools were chosen, and in honor of transparency, we would just really like to know the decision-making process. As well as, I have a personal request of how can we get more information about how our voices can be heard in the new legislative session in Austin. I feel like that's where this is stemming from. And we have such amazing and passionate parents here that it would be fantastic for lawmakers to hear the same things that you are hearing tonight. If we could be provided with more information on that, it would be much appreciated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Number 17.
Good evening. I'll be a little nervous because I'm not a public speaker. My name, my name is Irene Lujan. I'm a parent, a grandma, a friend, and a neighbor. Clear Spring is my community. I have been a member of this community since I registered my oldest daughter for kindergarten in 1978. After that, followed 2 more daughters, and Clear Spring has planted the seeds for my daughters to become amazing women, 2 teachers, 1 museum registrar. Excuse me, I am nervous. I have known some remarkable principals at Clear Spring, from Esther Pape to our current principal, Sarah Ramirez. I've not only been a parent, I have been a staff. I worked there for 5 years. I was in the clinic, and I have known some of the students that are coming in with their kids. I worked there 5 years, then moved on to food service, and I retired from Northeast with 25 years. Clear Spring is dedicated to the children. Their goal is to our students, for our students to become academically, social, and emotionally, which I see that every day when I walk in, when I go in there to volunteer, to just be around the students every day. Our kids are not just numbers and papers or dollar signs. We are our community, our kids are people, and it's a community, and we have a big family. Please don't close our school. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Number 18.
Hi, my name's Erica Ferguson. My daughter is Amelia Ferguson, and I'm here to speak for her. She is currently in the special education program with a diagnosis with autism, speech learning disability, as well as disability of educational learning. They have stated that she will have issues with social environments as well as peer environments. This is her first year where she has actually been successful in school due to the fact that all her accommodations and comfortability at her school are there. Her risk rate is at a 94 on the scaling of the implications of moving, of changes and transitions for her. I'm more worried that something is going to devastate her as her school closing, which it's going to. I have still yet to tell her because it's going to disengage her. She will have anxiety, depression, which she's already scaled at a 70 or 30. And that's just one student out of 3 schools that has been tested. All these other children have not been tested for their emotional behaviors. All these children have emotions and feelings, and taking away their comfortability in their schools is devastating. On behalf of my daughter, I know it's going to ruin her. So we just want you to reconsider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 19.
Good evening. My name is Estela Guajardo. I'm speaking on behalf of my daughter, Luna Granados. I debated whether or not I wanted to speak up, but I am my daughter's advocate. This is my daughter's first year at Wilshire Elementary. She previously attended NEISD Khan Academy last year. And as you know, they did the whole consolidation. It was not a good year for her. For both of us, actually, it was full of heartaches and sleepless and cries, and we had the worst time. This year is her first year at Wilshire, and it was an adjustment, but she's doing so amazing. We have support. We have a counselor now. Cotton didn't have one. We had no counselor, so every time she would act out, scream, cry, kick, hit kids, which is not like her, she would just go sit up front. She had nobody to help her work through those emotions. So when they decided that they were gonna consolidate the schools, Teachers didn't care. Parents didn't care. You are putting a number on my kid. She's not a dollar sign. She is a child with emotions. We have worked so much this year that she's actually enjoying to go to school. Wilshire is just down the street from us. We just bought our house. So the fact that I was willing to pull her out of SISD to put her in Northeast, I'm willing to pull her out of Northeast and put her somewhere else. You know, you're not giving us enough time. My daughter, you know, she's 6, 7 years old. She doesn't adjust well. None of these kids do. You know, we are still human. We're still learning how to learn our emotions. It's just give us more time. That's all we ask. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. On behalf of the trustees, I want to thank everybody for coming down and speaking. I know it takes time out of your busy days to come and speak with us, but we appreciate your attendance here and the information you've given us. Item number 8, matters from executive session. A, personnel, including but not limited to administrative appointments pursuant to Government Code Section 551.074. 1, possible action regarding routine personnel, including but not limited to administrative appointments. Do I have a motion to approve items A, assistant principal at Churchill High School, and B, assistant principal at Harmony Hills Elementary School as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Landry. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Villarreal. Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Item passes 7-0. Item 2, possible action regarding proposed recommendation for termination of Chapter 21 term contract employee as presented in executive session. Do I have a motion to approve as presented in executive session? Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Chidgey. Any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. 3, possible action regarding proposed recommendation for termination of Chapter 21 probationary contract employee. Do I have a motion to approve as presented in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Cox. Do I have a second?
Second.
Is that
Second.
Ms. Shelton?
Yes.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Item 4, possible action regarding superintendent's contract. Do I have a motion to approve as discussed in executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Villarreal. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Chidgey.
We all agree.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Item passes 7-0. Item 9, presentations. A, intruder detection audit by Texas School Safety Center. Dr. Micah.
Thank you, Mr. President. As we discussed back in closed session, we had 8 campuses that were visited by a school safety officer. Again, I'm going to state to staff, there is never, ever a reason for an unlocked door, ever. And we've discussed this routinely, but unfortunately with that we had a couple findings due to that. So those principals have addressed those matters, and we will continue to address it as well. Thank you. Thank
you. All right, item B, state of the PTA report. Lee Henry, NEC PTA president.
Good evening, Mr. President, board members, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. My name is Lee Henry, the NEISD Council PTA president. I'd like to take a minute to recognize and introduce the NEISD Council of PTA officers and chairs that are here with me tonight. I have 4th VP of Communications, Debbie Weissmuller. Secretary, Sarah Patterson. Our Advocacy Chair, Robbie Shepard. And our Founders Day Chair, Lucy Reyna. As part of the Texas PTA's criteria to earn an outstanding Council PTA Platinum Award, a PTA council must attend a school board meeting and present a State of the Council report. Our council has been working hard to achieve this distinction, and we hope you find this information helpful. The NEISD Council of PTAs is a group of dedicated volunteers working to make a difference for all children. Our goal is that everything we do is in support of the PTA mission, to make every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and communities to advocate for all children. As a council PTA, our purpose is to act as a primary channel of communication with the PTA in the PTA network. We provide information, inspiration, support, and guidance to our member PTAs. Council PTA serves to strengthen the local PTAs, develop leadership potential, promote PTA membership, and advance Texas PTA's goals, programs, and initiatives. Our PTA year began on July 1st. On July 19th through the 21st, 14 of our council board members, along with 53 local NISD PTA leaders, traveled to Grapevine, Texas to attend the Texas PTA launch. At this seminar, Texas PTA holds our annual meeting, and it's a weekend filled with training and networking opportunities. As an association, we hold 5 meetings each school year. During these meetings, we share timely information, focus on promoting Texas PTA's Back the Future message, recognize local membership award accomplishments, and highlight success and innovative local PTA programs through the Council Spotlight On Awards. 2 of the meetings have already been held. In September, we had Texas PTA President Jennifer Easley speak to us on the Texas PTA legislative priorities in preparation for this February's Rally Day. And in November, the district recognized top volunteers from last year's school year. At our March meeting, Dr. Michael will share his State of the District message, and in April, we will present the Virgil T. Blossom scholarships as well as recognize local PTA membership awards. We have provided and will continue to hold numerous trainings on helpful and relevant topics, which will include officer responsibilities, membership, committee chair trainings, and the 6th class of our Connections Leadership Development Program completed their course in November. Our mentor team will be working with our local PTAs to address their specific questions and needs. We currently have 63 of our 67 PTAs in good standing with Texas PTA, and the remaining 4 should achieve that status hopefully later this month. Currently, our council-wide membership is 15,513, which puts us at 87% of our goal of 17,886 members. Our local PTAs are doing a great job sharing the PTA message and promoting membership. Council helps local PTAs increase their membership with our community membership program. We currently have 40 community heroes that have contributed 488 memberships for our local PTAs. We appreciate the school board members and the NISD executive staff who have joined as community heroes. Our upcoming council events for the remainder of the school year include the International Student Exchange Breakfast on January 24th. This is a heartwarming event where the exchange students here in our district share their experiences in America and about their home countries. On February 6th, council will host the annual Founders Day celebration at Lee High School, where we'll honor this year's recipients of Texas Life Member and Extended Service Awards, as well as the National Lifetime Achievement Awards. Advocacy is one of the pillars of PTA, and our membership is the strength of our voice. On February 24th, we will journey to Austin to have our voices join with other PTA leaders across the state as we advocate for improving public school funding, resolve teacher and staff shortages, increase school safety, transform school accountability, and keep public dollars in the public schools. Council Reflections Awards will be presented in a ceremony on February 25th at Roosevelt High School. And we will award 7 more high school seniors at this year's class of Blossom Scholarship recipients at our delegate meeting in April. We currently have 24 recipients still in the process of pursuing their degrees in education. The last thing I'd like to share with you is information on our Closed Closet program. This month, Closed Closet celebrates its 8th anniversary. This program has grown tremendously over that time,
From its first semester in operation in spring of 2017, where 150 students were served, to this most recent semester in fall of 2024, where we served 621 students. The closed closet serves students in both person, and we have a curbside service where families fill out a form and volunteers select items for the students, and then they are bagged and given to the family specialist to get to the families. This allows us to serve families that cannot get to the closed closet due to work schedules or transportation issues. In just 8 years, the closed closet has served more than 6,000 students from every high school cluster in our district. The program would certainly not be possible without the volunteers and clothing drives from our NEISD schools and the support of our entire NEISD community. We appreciate your continued support to help us achieve our mission. Social media is one of our most effective communication tools, and we urge you to like the Council Instagram and Facebook page and visit our website at necouncilpta.com. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Do any trustees have any questions or comments?
I do.
Okay, start with Ms. Shelton.
Two things. One, you said that your goal, your 80% of your goal, and your goal was 17,000, and you're at 15. How do you determine what the goal, the membership goal is?
We look at what we've done last year, and then we always try and increase whatever we did from last year. So last year we had that about maybe 5 or 10% less than that number.
Okay.
So.
Got it. And then my second question, and probably my most important question, is Rally Day, where you're going to the Capitol and you're lobbying for those things that are important for all of our children. One of our earlier speakers, number 16, Ms. Sarah Valentine, wanted more information on how to engage with the legislature. How are you guys communicating to not just parents, but our staff about all the things that you're doing, but particularly how would we communicate out so that that could be something that, she'd be able to engage in if she was interested?
A lot of our social media is where we have, like tomorrow we have a Rally Day planning session, but we do a lot of it through the social media, and then we also send out emails to all the principals and all the PTAs so they can share with their members the information.
Thank you.
Sure. Anybody else?
Ms. Cox?
I don't have a question. I just have a thank you. I know it's School Board Appreciation Month, but I appreciate PTA membership and the membership and what PTAs do on all our campuses. I know how hard you guys work. A lot of times you don't get credit for that. I remember the good old days of the used book sale. It was a lot of work. And the closed closet is a tremendous resource that we have, and it's one that reaches out to every single campus. I've seen it firsthand. So I just want to say thank you, and you're much appreciated and never taken for granted. And you are extremely vital to every campus and every child in this district. So thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you so much. The closed closet, I've heard so many things that you have saved kids with that program. And I just really appreciate everything that you do. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And also thank you for that amazing meal that you gave us tonight. That was amazing. But you are appreciated. And I know you're one of the unsung heroes. Right. And we appreciate everything that you guys are doing.
So I just want to piggyback on everything that my colleagues have said. You ladies and gentlemen out there are behind the scenes of everything that goes on, and we depend on you even more now. There are a lot of times that the principal doesn't have something in their budget, or they can't make something happen, and there's always a call that can be made to a PTA member to make something happen. So we really, really do appreciate you, and we appreciated our meal tonight.
I just want to thank you guys. You all are my peers. PTA bred me. And nurtured me as a parent, and I am very grateful that you all, some of you who even have kiddos who have aged out of school, still continue to serve that mission. So thank y'all, and thank you for a lovely dinner.
Yes, you're welcome.
Thank you all for being here. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Item C, Texas Accountability and Performance Report, TAPR, and Scorecard Update. Before we launch into this, I just want to remind my fellow trustees, the Scorecard Update part of this is kind of what we talked about a few months ago or a couple months ago about frequency of reporting on the different parts of our balanced district scorecard. So keep that in mind as we're going through that, because we'll have a follow-up conversation in the coming couple of months to talk about the information we received and how we want that to look. Did it look good, not look good, good, bad, and ugly, all that. So anyway, Mr. Jarrett, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. President, Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests. I'd like to ask Brandy Merriman, April Musquiz, Reve Schaefer, and Esmeralda Munoz to come forward for this agenda item.
Okay, all right. Good evening, President Byer, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. The Texas Education Code 39.306 requires each district's board of trustees to publish an annual report that includes a variety of performance objectives. Tonight is the required public meeting and discussion of this report. I will be presenting the 2023-2024 Texas Academic Performance Report, or TAPR, T-A-P-R, and other various aspects of the district's performance. Before I begin, it's important to note that we will be sharing the newly publicized available state and district data. Some of this data is from the most recent school year, 2023-24, while other data is from prior years. I will try to clarify the source of each data as we move through the slides. If you have any questions, please feel free to interrupt, and that way we can answer them as we go.
And I'd like to actually maybe dispute you on that one.
Don't interrupt
no,
too much, right?
If there are questions that need to clarify on the, like you just don't understand the slide, but if we can kind of hold most of the questions to the end, that would be appreciated.
You want me to turn
so
off my mic?
So we don't disrupt our flow here. What's that?
I said, so you want me to turn off my mic because you know I have a question already?
If we haven't even gotten to the second slide and you have a question, we might have a long night. Anyway, sorry.
So,
you do have a question.
I actually do have a question. So you were saying that some of it's from 2023 and some of it's from prior, and that's because that we don't have any more recent data, which is why some of it is 2022.
That is correct. They released the most recent data, which is 2024, but that doesn't include graduation and attendance. That's from the year prior to that. So every year we get the data a little bit late. All right, so we're going to include the data from the TAPR, but we're also going to include an update to our district's scorecard, and that's what the ladies behind me are staring down my neck to go over with me. So there's 8 sections to the district annual report, and I want to point out the fact that many of these data points are included in previous presentations to the board because TEA has released this throughout the year. This is just a public meeting. So when I get to a section that we've already covered, I'm just going to refer to that date and not go back over it, okay? We get some district accreditation and the TAPR report, which is going to be the most of the presentation. We also have some performance from post-secondary institutions, like how our students did during their first year of college. We also have some discipline information. Also, our performance objectives, or our SIP, our Campus Improvement Plan, will be discussed. Also, our HB3 progress and HB3 goals from the 86th legislature. And our financial standard report from the 22-23 school year. And we're also going to include the glossary. All the links that are included here works on your PDF that was sent to you earlier, and they will be available moving forward. So the district accreditation, or our status, usually the TEA assigns one of 4 accreditation statuses, either accredited, accredited warned, accredited probation, or not accredited. These status is assigned based on our accountability ratings, our financial accountability ratings, our data integrity, and our program deficiencies as reported through the results-driven accountability, the RDA. Since TA has not issued these ratings for the last 2 years, our most recent year is 2022-23, and we were accredited. So that's us. The TAPR report is a PDF that's released for every district and every campus in the state. It's compiled by TEA. It is a PDF report that we're not allowed to edit. So that public report is linked at the top of this page, and every campus also has one. It typically includes some ratings and distinctions, but once again, because TEA has not provided that, we will not have our ratings and distinctions. So this is what it looks like. Basically, it has every demographic and pretty much every data point you can think of. The TAPR includes 6,400 or actually more than that data points for the district, and I'll be going over each one in detail. I'm kidding, no. It provides 2 years of data for most data points. It includes students, demographics for staff, race, ethnicity, experience for our staff, and salaries. It includes star performance, and even though 6,400 is a district, that doesn't include all the state data that it includes. So again, just to go over some of the detail, the student information, like demographics, like each campus has what their campus consists of when it comes to grade level, ethnicity, special education, graduation, staff, and program information. The best part of it is the star performance, obviously. It provides us with 2 years of data, the 2024 and the 2023 scores. It includes all 3 performance rates, approaches, meets, and masters. It provides it for every assessment, every subject, every grade level, and even what enrolled grade for our advanced academic classes. Now, previously, I was allowed to present, in September of 2024, I was allowed to present the state assessment data, and I explained that my data was preliminary. Well, preliminary for me is actually pretty accurate. So if you look at the last 2 years, again, I usually give it over several years, but the last 2 years is provided in the TAPR, and this is our all subject category. And if you look at the TAPR and you look for the all subject category, then you could find the meets performance for the district, the region, and the state. And I matched. I'm just saying, I matched it. All right. So we also have the data for our reading and our math and our science and our social studies, and they all are exactly what we presented back in September. Yes. Thank you, Patsy. I appreciate that. We also have bilingual education. How does our ESL students perform? How does our dual language students perform? Again, they provide 2 years of data, and Alicia Alvarez Calderon provided this data to the board in October, and I provided you a link to her presentation, which is right there. We also have some data on attendance and graduation rates, but because this data is usually a year in the rears, it is usually the most recent year is the 2023 school year. Again, it's attendance, graduation, dropout rate, and so it's 2 years, 2023 and 2024. Now, the attendance data I found interesting, so I'm going to go ahead and bring that back up here. The gray line is the state. It is how the state has performed over time, and the kind of greenish bluish line is the region. Again, they mirror each other. And then this is our district, which again, it does mirror. But this is an issue that we want to address, and we've been working on all year long to stress the attendance, the importance of attendance. Now, the most recent year, last year, this is my estimate of last year, which again, I think it's a drop, but I really don't know what I'm doing when it comes to attendance, but I try. So the estimate moving forward for the first semester, because of our focus on it, I see is going up to at least a 94.5 in the first semester. So I think our strategy, our principles work to ensure that we all know the importance of attendance is working. Graduation rates are, again, an issue that we've been working on. Most recent class is the 2023. The graduation rate is very, very complicated to predict based on continuers, non-continuers, all these other factors, but I do think my most recent year is still going to be about a 90.4, so again, I think we've stopped the decline. All right, another area of TAPR is the College Career Military Readiness, or CCMR. This includes many different criteria or elements of it. It includes TSI, which is the Texas Success Initiative. It's the how they perform on SAT, ACT in both reading and math. It also includes career and technology education, our dual credit classes, Also, some other indicators such as graduates that enrolled in Texas institution. I'm going to kind of go over some of that data right now. So, when you're thinking about CCMR, again, it's a year in the rears. The first two columns represent the state for 2022 and 2023, and the next two columns represent the district for 2022 and 2023. When I was looking at this data, one group that kind of stood out to me was the dual credit criteria, and you can see we're about 10% lower, and that kind of concerned me. But when we looked at other areas that also provide dual credit or give us that opportunity, you can see we're more than 10 or 12% above the district and the state. And so it just depends on what the district is emphasizing. And we have chosen to put most of our emphasis, whatever that word is, on on-ramps, credit criteria, which again is dual credit, and some AP criteria. I also want to point out our industry-based criteria, which was 20 and 28%. 2 years ago, it was 9.0. So we've made some huge increases on our industry-based certifications. Our overall percent of college career military graduates is at 69.6 right now. To look at it over time, you can see it listed right here. Our increase over the last year is, I predicted 70, it was 69.6, and it's a little bit a higher, steeper line than the state, but we are still working on that. The next information I'm going to share is where do our kids go to college? Because I thought it was kind of interesting. So when you look at the first two columns, this is our 2022 graduates. And in the fall of 2022, this is where they chose to enroll. And you could see that over 51% of our kids chose to enroll in either a 4-year or 2-year institution. Now, these are just our in-state calculations. We don't know about which kids might have gone out of state. So this is all we can get is the in-state information. Go ahead, sir.
No, and I just want to, especially to some of the folks that are new, that's the one thing about this is we have no idea, and when you've attended SUMAs and some of those things, a lot of our students are choosing to go outside of Texas. The moment they exit, we have no idea where they're going. So that is data we do, as a state, do not capture. So some confusion has come around with, oh my gosh, only 50% of our kids go to college in Texas. And then I have no idea how many go out of state because we can't capture it.
And then the most recent year that we have data for, which is our 2023 graduates entering college in fall of 2023, we're at 55.2%. Well, the next question I ask myself is, well, how are they doing? So on the next slide, we are talking about the NEISD graduates' attendance in Texas post-secondary institutions, another reporting requirement, and we want to know how did they do in these post-secondary institutions. So we follow that. The Texas Higher Education Board follows the students from fall of the year that they enter through the spring and the summer, and we have this data for our 2022 graduates, and they only give it to us by high school. So if you'll click the link, you can see how each high school has performed. I compiled them as a district, and of our 4,765 graduates, 1,140 are at a 4-year college, and 1,237 at a 2-year public college. If you want to figure out like 3.5, how many had a 3.5 or higher, then you would take the 3.5 and divide by 1140. I wanted to figure out how many had a 2.5 or higher, because that's what I had to have to keep my scholarship when I was in high school. And so that would come out to 75% had a 2.5 or higher at the 4-year college, and 59% had a 2.5 or higher at the 2-year public school. In the past, we've always been above or really close to 75%. The next section of the annual report is the report on violent criminal incidents. It is, again, not part of the TAPR, but it's released by the state, and again, we have the links to the district and the campus. We don't have to go over any part of this specifically, but I'd like to go over some of the incidents, or I can't even read my handwriting there, incidents that resulted in PEMS calculations or PEMS reporting, and that would be conduct that's punishable as a felony, or conduct that is that we have to report to PEMS. I provided 3 years of data. Again, I'm just an overachiever, but I did want to show that the most recent year has had a slight drop in most areas. The possessed, sold, used, the next to the last line, the influence of marijuana has been an issue since we've had the e-cigarettes and the what's it called, THCs. But that is an area that we're working on, and plus now they've pulled out the e-cigarette itself and just done about the THC into this felony possession, sold, or under the influence of. All right, campus performance objectives. This is provided in the campus improvement plans, which was presented to the board in November, in your November regular meeting on November 11th. So I'm not going to go back over all of that. Our HB3 goals, which is part of the 86th legislative requirement, is that we had to provide goals for early childhood mathematics and CCMR. We have to provide information about the progress made on those, and this year we're asking you to adopt new 5-year goals. It will be in a later item in your agenda, provided by Dr. Munoz and the people behind me. And then finally, our financial standards report. Again, it's a year or 2 years in the rears. It's 2022-23. It is provided by TEA. This is the actual spending versus their budgeted spending. And again, our district has already provided this information to the district, or to the board, in November of 2023. So again, I'm not going to go back over that. And then we have our TAPR. This is the glossary that tells you about everything that's involved in the TAPR. And this is my information if you want to reach out to me and ask for any more information. This data will be provided in paper copies. We'll provide it in the front office in our little lounge up there. Paper copies of every campus will be listed, put there within 2 weeks. It's actually already there. And then paper copies will also be available at the lobby of every campus of the TAPR report. I'm now going to hand it over to the executive directors for curriculum instruction, secondary and elementary, and then the executive director for learning support services, and they will give a scorecard update on the information you've listened to today. Does anyone have any questions for me? Go ahead.
So I appreciate the link being in here where we can go campus by campus. But you know me well enough to know I sat and wrote down a campus and wrote down where their reading was in 3rd grade and where the reading was. Is that all in one place somewhere? One one table that has all of the campuses and
From the TAPR report, just like a list of all the campuses?
the STAR data.
It's not coming from the state, obviously.
No. From
From us?
Northeast. Have you created such a thing? That
Yes,
we
ma'am, I have
discussed?
created such a thing.
And is it possible for us to be able to have, otherwise
don't
we
know.
have to go campus by campus, so I'm asking, can we see that? That number means, I mean, if it's a 77, how did we get to that 77? What schools were rocked it and what schools do we need, keep our spotlight on? So I'm just curious. We don't need
I know that there is that first off, the TAPR report is linked directly to the publicized analytical portal that you can basically get a list of all of our elementary campuses and our performance on any subject area. So I can provide that link to the board for sure.
But we have that link, I think, right? But we have to go campus by campus to see it.
Well, like I said, I think the analytic portal, you put all the campuses on one list. Let me take a look for that first off, because that would be a public issue.
Yeah.
So, Ms. Chid, let me make sure I know what you're asking
Okay.
for. All right. What you want to be able to do is see all 45 elementary schools, third grade reading side
right.
by side.
That's right.
Or right.
That's right.
That's so.
Yes, sir, I can provide it. I'm just asking for permission
Right.
from y'all.
No. You have that currently, correct?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, that's all. They have a process to get it. It's fine.
Okay.
That's all we need to know.
Yes, sir. Anything else?
I have one question.
Yes, ma'am.
Aren't you a Cowboys fan?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you happy or are you sad?
I'm pretty sad
All
right
right.
now. Thank you.
We'll
for
move
that.
on then.
Thank
All
you.
right. You're welcome. My apologies. So I just thought, I heard that and you popped in my head on the way over, so my condolences. So I'm curious about this post-secondary institutions thing. Has that always been a thing? Like the schools, our schools have always, or the colleges have always shared?
It's been since I've been in this position. I think
Okay.
it's, Yeah.
I can't get my college kids' grades without his permission, but, so I just find this,
we
I'm just
can't get
curious
the,
about this.
obviously student by student, but we can
Yeah.
get the summary report.
I
Yes,
see,
ma'am.
okay, all right.
Yeah,
that
that's
makes
what I was
more
going to
sense.
say.
Okay,
We're
okay.
not getting individual. We're just
Okay,
getting summary.
That's
Summary
what I
report,
didn't
that's
understand.
correct.
You
Okay,
know,
thank you.
think of it like sometimes when we report, Mr. Shoesmith reports discipline and we have an asterisk hidden, right? This is such a large data set, there's no way for us to sort it through who's who, so it's masked enough.
Thank you, that answers my
Thank you.
question.
All right, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
On the slide for violent and criminal incidents, I'm glad that everything's kind of coming down. But one thing that kind of jumps out at me is the fighting and mutual combat, where it's almost like triple what it has been the last prior 2 years. Do we have any idea of what is causing that?
I don't, but these guys might.
Good evening. We would have to, we look into a lot of the instances, and just so you know, for fighting specifically, a lot of districts, they report fighting as, like mutual combat. We don't send every kid to alternative for fighting. A majority of those kiddos don't go. That's handled on campus. When it's repetitive in nature, or if there is one extreme fight where it disrupts a substantial amount of the campus, like it's in the cafeteria, then those instances are where we look at sending a student for discretionary placement at alternative. And so we may have an incident where it involves 6 to 8 people at one time, because there's a large group of individuals that are fighting each other that causes a large disruption. You may have an uptick like that, and in this instance, that's what's happened. And we have a campus where we had like 9 individuals involved in a fight together. I can't really go into the specifics in public forum, but that's where we see a big uptick.
Right, and in that 55, that's really one incident, but it
Correct.
involved 9 people. Does that make sense?
It does,
So-
but it doesn't
Right,
bring me
so
to the
it's-
3 times the
Yeah,
prior years.
I can say, and one of the things we saw coming out of COVID was this inability to interact very well between each other, and you saw a lot of lashing out. You see some of that still,
Right.
and I don't know, you can add to it. I mean,
No, you're correct.
Yeah.
In some instances, like I said, so we may have a fight where there's like four individuals, they're disrupting, and a large portion of this happens not necessarily in a classroom, but in like an open space, and so it's disrupting a large portion of the campus, and we have maybe 4 kids get into a fight or 9 kids get into a fight like the ones I referenced, and that will make the numbers jump up, so.
And so that wasn't happening the last 2 years and just happened this
It
past year?
has happened, and it may be included in the prior years. I can go look to see if there were group fights in the prior years, but a majority of that's where those larger numbers come from. When you look at other districts, what they report, their numbers are usually 600, 700 kids that are reported for fighting, because they code every instance that way. It's a local discretion number that we don't code it that way for our purposes. It's only like extreme fighting. And they may code it something differently when it's like an assault or something else, but for our purposes, no. Typically, that's what happens when you have a jump like that in a year.
Have we seen jumps like this in previous years? I know, Dr. Micah, you said COVID, but it's kind of alarming to me that we would have such a huge increase from 2 years to the next year. And
yeah,
that's-
Miss Landry, I will say that when it comes to discipline, historically anyway, you will see Some numbers jump up for various reasons, and then you'll see them come down, and then other things can rise. It's kind of like the discipline kind of evolves, I guess, is how I would frame it. And so right now, what Mr. Shoesmith, I believe, is trying to get to is we've just had a lot of more group fighting. It's not individuals. So we're having, when these 55 incidences have happened, it's 9 kids, it's 6 kids, it's 5 kids. And so it's one fight, but we code it 9 times.
And is there a trend? Is
That's
there
different.
A
That's
particular-
a little different than what we have seen, which that's where then Mr. Shoesmith and his team starts to work, and Mr. Jimenez start to work at the individual campus, because what it tends to be, and that's I think why he's also being slightly elusive, is because we can tip where it is, but a lot of times we can see it and target it and start intervening at that facility.
Okay, and that's
Okay.
really what I wanted to know.
Correct. So we start to look at, that's what he's always tracking, our patterns and behaviors, and where do we need the support and where do we not. Sometimes it's just a group of kids that just for whatever reason just aren't getting along. And so we need to do some interventions differently there versus elsewhere. So I wouldn't say we've seen a rise in fighting. I think we've seen it at a couple individual areas that he's had to work on addressing.
Okay,
Does that help?
perfectly.
Okay.
Yes,
And
thank
we've
you.
made some structural changes to help the principals out, very similar to other things that we've done. For example, like the fleeing from administrator. We, separate apart from that, like for fighting, we have a repetitive nature of fighting, and it's like determining what the thresholds of the principals, what they need for. So if it's a 1 fight, or if it's 2 fights, or 3 fights. It used to be 3 fights, now it's 2 fights, and that has helped us with a decrease in fighting. Because
And that can even
we were
go
very
so far
concerned
as
with-
where are you positioning staff? Because sometimes, again, as a former principal, Mr. Jimenez and I have talked about it, and even Mr. Jarrett, sometimes you're so close to it, you don't even see sometimes some obvious things that you should be, could be doing
right.
because you're just involved in it. And so it's even so much as, and I know Mr. Shoesmith's even gone out to some of the buildings and walked them with principals and talked to them about different things that they can and can't be, here's some ideas.
Right.
Okay, so bottom line, there's awareness and there's work being done to help.
While the numbers seem concerning, I'm not very concerned necessarily because we have structures in place that are addressing the issue.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, great, thank you.
I have one question. I am also concerned about this increase. Is this affecting our teachers? Is this, because I would, if they're being drawn into this, or, they're trying to stop this, is this causing problems, not only with the students, but with admin and teachers?
That's a big question, because not having spoken to a lot of teachers, we are doing our listening sessions for discipline and behavior right now, but, pejoratively, we were looking at the overall impact. The issue is whether or not we're able to support our teachers and the administration when these instances do happen, and continue to send the message that this isn't tolerated. And that's where the teachers then feel supported, that we're taking action when these instances do arise, to be able to help support not just them, but also the overall campus and climate, or excuse me, the culture and climate on the campus.
Ms. V, I'd say any sort of discipline issue disrupts our teachers, no matter what it is. Right? And so that's why Mr. Shoesmith, as he just said, is starting listening sessions and going around talking to people, because what he's always trying to figure out is what else could we be doing that's actionable, that can do it? What are we experiencing? Again, as you all well know, I charge my staff and myself with visiting all of our schools every year. We've got to be out in our schools to know what they're experiencing. That's what he's working on now, is trying to get to some of this. Some of it just doesn't unpack very quickly. But those are those things. But any sort of discipline, whether it's, I don't know, yelling out in class or it's a disruption, because the moment a teacher has to take time away to deal with a student who's misbehaving, is time away from instruction. It's just that simple. And so what we're always trying to do is maximize instructional time by creating the best robust component to it, right? I mean, think about that, the policy we made you all aware about fleeing, right? Like, that is a huge distraction, not just for teachers, but it's for administrators. It's taking people away from the job that they need to do. So that's why we're always, I think I described it as whack-a-mole. That's what discipline is. This comes up, this one goes down, and we're always looking and juggling that balance.
When I was elected onto this board, one of the biggest things I would hear from teachers, and one of the reasons why they were stepping away from teaching, was our disciplinary actions that were not taken to support our teachers. Are we coming up with some sort of an action plan to address these issues? Because, you know, frankly, teachers are getting tired, and what support are we giving them? Are we developing an action plan that gives real support, not just lip service to support? That's what I'm concerned about, because what I was hearing from teachers, and I don't think things have changed much over the years, or I've only been on the board for 2 years now. I doubt very seriously there's been a giant overhaul. Teachers were feeling very unsupported in these instances. So are you looking to create a game plan to give our teachers more support in this area that, we would be privy to?
So there's a twofold answer to that. Part of it is my responsibility, which is discipline for the district. So that's the reactionary part of like behavior in incidences that happen on campus. So we're somewhat of the reactionary force when it comes to that, being able to create structures that there's a consequence and there's an appropriate process for due process for the individual students, so that they have the opportunity to present their side, the whole due process section of discipline. And then there's the other part of it, which is the behavior side, which falls into multiple other areas of like MTSS and special education that address specifically like the minimal behaviors in class, classroom structures, support for teachers, the behavior specialists that go out. Those are the ones that are addressing, how to create those structures inside the classroom and also throughout a campus. Our purpose on our side for discipline is, we are obviously out, like Dr. Mike mentioned, I mentioned earlier, is, doing the listening sessions, trying to help understand where teachers' perspectives are with regards to behavior and discipline. They're pretty much separate and apart. The behavior causes a disciplinary infraction. However, though, the behavior is what the other parts address, the other departments they help support. On our part, listening to understand where teachers are and helping us craft messaging to help them understand what the law says we're allowed to do and what we can't do, and how we operate within those areas, because there's a lot of misperceptions out there with regards to what we're legally allowed to do and what constitutes a certain level of behavior that puts a child at alternative. And essentially, when it comes down to it, it's like, okay, well, we're going to put a kid at alternative for 15 days, 25 days, 30 days. What's going to happen when that kiddo comes back? And what type of receptors are there? What type of programming is going to be there to get them in that transition, coming back into their classroom and being able to function to the expectation of behavior that the campus has set forth? Because there's no quick fix within 15, 20 days or 30 days. There's no magic wand to that. It's institutional supports. It's longitudinal interventions. It's helping reduce mobility for kiddos so they're not moving around from one campus to another, so that we have them at one spot for a period of time where interventions can be effective. That's the longer term approach. So there's a mix of both, because we don't want recidivism, which is kids going back to alternative, and that's one thing we try to avoid in our office by looking at how can we better address some of the kids' needs. With the mental health grant, we have a social worker that's helping support the transition for them going to alternative and return to home campus. But essentially, what does the receptor look like when they come back to their home campus, after they've committed the infraction? Do they understand the offenses that they've committed? Do they know what the better plan is for them to have a kind of like a safety plan when they come back? When I'm getting in trouble, I feel the stressors, who do I go talk to? you know, how do I mitigate some of those things before I get to the level where I'm fighting on campus or turning to alcohol or drugs or whatever else they may turn to. So there's a lot to unfold there, but from our department's perspective, we're trying to learn a lot more about what teachers' perspectives are and what they're actually seeing. Because from our microcosm, I see 5% of the district, and it looks pretty crazy from our side of the office, but really when you get out there, it's 95%. Everything doesn't look that way. You know, there's a lot more good things than bad things going on in the district, significantly. 95% of it is so much better. And even my 5% isn't that bad. It's just looks bad on paper for the most part, because these are real kids and these aren't numbers.
Thank you.
Sure.
Shelton, you have questions?
Was that targeted questions?
No, I
You
said,
knew there
Ms.
was more than
Shelton,
one?
do you have questions?
So
You're next.
I want to confirm that everything on this paper happens with one of our students at one of our campuses. Yes?
That's correct.
What we're okay.
Right.
And then, are any of these overlapping? So can a fight be also bundled into a assault on a person other than a school district employee or punishable by a felony? So could it be the same kid, right? But it went into 2 or 3 buckets?
Not in the same incident.
Okay.
So the one, now, for some of these, for example, if we had like THC and then we also had other drugs on them, you could have multiple counts. Or they had a weapon, a location prohibited knife or something, and they also had other things in their possession, then it would be stacked.
Okay.
Would be included in those numbers. But for like, you mentioned assault and fight, that you
Right.
can get one or the other.
So it's either assault or a
It'd be a
fight.
separate incident, that's correct.
Okay. But if it was if I had a fight and I had THC on me, it's the same person, but now I've got 2 numbers on this page, potentially.
Correct, potentially.
Okay. Okay. And then any assault against anyone other than a school district employee or volunteer? What is
Student or a visitor.
Okay. And a terroristic threat?
Mhm.
What is?
The
What does
definition
that
of a
mean?
terrorist
Yes.
threat? So I've caused I can pull up the penal code definition, but basically it's off the Texas Education,
Okay.
the Texas Penal Code,
It's
but it's
defined
the same definition, but basically causing a threat, threaten your life to the degree where I can cause serious bodily injury or greater.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Or, Ms. Shelton, they caused a substantial disruption to the operations of the system due to their threat.
Okay.
So, because what you hear a lot in is, oh, I was just joking. But if you said you're going to do something, like, I don't know if you saw a district down south just had no school because of a bomb threat.
Yeah.
That can be a terroristic threat.
Got it.
Because if it causes Chief McCampbell or somebody to start responding,
Mm-hmm.
that
Okay.
can be, and again, how we code it versus the penal code and all that, we're getting into discipline versus law, but ultimately, if it's making a substantial disruption and causing emergency personnel to start reacting to it, you've got a terroristic threat
Okay.
on your
Got
hands.
it. Okay. Thank you.
Any questions for Brandy? Brandy's still here? Oh, I didn't know if she slipped out while we were talking about discipline.
I tried. I was hiding from you.
I have a question about your attendance guesstimate. When do you think when do we have that official?
Well, it probably won't be official till
Till
next year at
next
this
year.
time, to be honest.
But-
They don't give us any attendance data until then.
Okay, but we have generally attendance data.
We
so
have
can
our
take a
data, and
very-
I confirmed with Management Information Services, and so they got the same answer I did, so I'm pretty sure about it. But again, the first semester is nowhere close to being finalized, because again, it'll be another year.
Sure. When we're talking about the CCMR growth and looking at everything from AP to in IBCs and on-ramps and all that, is there I don't know if I'm going to ask this correctly, but is the increase in that tied to additional funding for each of the students if they meet certain thresholds, I guess?
The outcomes bonus has something to do with that. Go ahead, sir.
Or is that mixing too many different
No,
things?
that is
or
correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah, and we're going to actually talk a little bit about that when we get to the HB3 component.
Okay. Okay, well then I'll save the rest of the questions for that, so, thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for Brandy?
I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Muski.
Awesome.
Do you want to amend the slides? All right. Good evening. Tonight, we are bringing to you a district scorecard update for Priority 1 students. And so before we kick off our presentation tonight, there are a few components of the district scorecard that we would like to highlight. So the data sources available that are linked there were used in tonight's presentation. So the first one is what Brandy has just presented to us, the TAPR report. And then below that, you will see the TEA 60 by 30 plan, as well as the campus improvement plans and the House Bill 3 or HB 3 goals for 25-29. The next column over, the key actions. So what you will see there is the broad scope of the work and the objectives, but linked below key actions is the District Instructional Improvement Plan, or the DIP, where you can see the specific strategies and actions that are taken. And so what we are reporting tonight is that far right column, the 5-year growth plan and long-term outcomes, which are our data points that we're presenting.
So starting with the first priority for students, 1.1, each child will demonstrate academic growth and critical thinking skills. We think of this as the 10,000-foot view on curriculum instruction and assessment, and the district instructional improvement plan is everything underneath that, all the way to the student sitting in a desk. So those are the key actions that we define with our teams to reach this 10,000-foot view.
All right, so the first data point that we are bringing to you for an update are the STAR percentage rates for students reaching approaches, and these are combined STAR test scores. So on the far left-hand side, you will see our original goals that were set in 23-24. So you see that first percentage there was the goal, and then the goals that followed through. So we did not meet the goal, and we had a 2% drop. So we have readjusted our goals to continue to strive for that 90%. However, the goals throughout the years have been adjusted. And then we also added into the scorecard meets and masters performance goals, which we had not included in the past. It was just approaches. So we are aiming for that meets and as well as monitoring our masters. These are HB3 goals for early literacy and math. So if you see the years 24 through 29 are blank pending board approval for the goals this evening. So for early literacy, we have goals for third grade STAR reading and math, Circle, which is the pre-K assessment in both literacy, phonological awareness, and math, as well as MAP growth, kinder through third grade.
So then we move into our progress updates, the metrics we're looking for on our college and career military readiness. Metric 4 is, we'll go into more details about what this is, but increasing opportunities for advanced learning in middle school. And then for literacy, 6th grade reading STAR and 6th grade math for numeracy to continue tracking and monitoring progress and setting goals that are aspirational. One of the things that we did is we looked longitudinally to see over the last 5 years what our system was capable of doing to grow, and then looked at the state's interim and long-term targets as well to determine what we're capable of. So the closer we were to interim, the higher we set our goals. The closer we were to long-term, the higher we set our goals. So we wanted to continue pushing ourselves to grow.
Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and talk about a little bit more about CCMR and our objective of 1.2, which is to ensure access for campuses to be able to provide those advanced academic and post-secondary readiness opportunities from kinder all the way through. We are also looking at the enhancement of our CTE programs, which we have already begun that process, even now as of recent with the new real estate pathway that we're trying to explore, and students are very excited about, by the way. And then also providing access to post-secondary focused events for all students, so that that way we get that exposure and that information out to our families, so that that way they know exactly what to choose for their students. So we were looking at the increase of the number of students who were enrolled in at least one potential college-bearing class. So the credit classes that we're looking at, everything from on-ramps to dual credit, AP, and then also we do get some advanced academic credit for those students who are actually sitting in middle school right now. So they have that opportunity as well. And so if you notice there from our goal, we had initially said that we were going to be at a 41.3 for 22-23. We had a 4.7% growth, which has led for us to be able to start our House Bill 3 goals and our 5-year goal setting at a higher percentage of 54% for our students. So the teachers and students did a tremendous job on those components there. And then we also have the improvement of industry-based certifications, access to those career and technical pathways, and then looking where we were at 22-23 at 20.7%, we had a 7.7% growth from one year to the next. And so now we are able to say that we're going to start our access to industry-based certifications at 37%, which is much higher than it was in previous years. Also looking at students having the opportunities to align their interests, to increase their sense of belonging, looking at information systems that are built throughout the infrastructure of Northeast ISD, being able to offer those connective pathways for our students, especially if they are highly mobile, if they're coming into our district, and having that welcoming environment. And so ultimately, we also have, and we have members of these programs here in the audience, to increase enrollment and retention in athletics. So if you notice, there is a check mark by those areas where we met the enrollment and retention. So you have athletics, you have GROTC that met, and then we have a slight decline in fine arts, but they're working diligently with the campuses to be able to have that on the course card and making sure those recommendations are appropriate for all of our students, giving them the exposure as well to those programs. Also having those support programs for mental, emotional, and physical well-being, increasing that communication with campuses, attendance rates, making sure like Mr. Shoesmith just talked about, and having that transition if in case there are some specific needs for students. So we do have our new goal for our 5-year plan is to be able to address improving attendance, making sure that we're improving discipline and connection for our students. And then we are also looking at monitoring existing programs and services. So we want to make sure that what we are providing is very intentional and that is aligned with our district policies and making our community aware of what we have available for students. And then making sure that we're following up with that 5-year plan as well. We do have a new mental health first aid program that has been approved by the state. It is also part of House Bill 3, and that is in essence for every single employee who comes in contact with students must have that training. And we have until 28-29 to be able to get that done. That is a program evaluation that we have to be very diligent about to be able to offer those support services. Not only that, but also the education for our community so that way they know exactly what services we're offering. Any questions?
Ms. Landry? Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Can you go back up to the slide regarding the athletics percentage? I just have to say that I'm super excited that we exceeded those goals and everything's going up. But I do have a question on pass to play. Is that still a thing to students? Are students required to achieve academic success in order to participate in athletics?
I humbly will pass that over to the
Ms. Landry, yes, ma'am.
superintendents.
Students still have to pass their courses to be able to participate in athletics or really in fine arts, any extracurricular activity. They'll need to do that, yes, ma'am.
Okay. That makes those numbers even better.
Yes,
Thank you.
absolutely.
I have a question on this slide then. So athletics is different than physical education. This is all about the extracurricular, not about just the mandatory PE you have to take.
That is correct. Athletics falls under UIL guidelines, which is where that comes from with you having to pass for that. So it's separate from the requirement of PE class.
Hi, I just have a question. So, under priorities for students where you're gathering information, I just want to kind of have a better understanding about what that kind of looks like this high-quality ambassador program. I was years ago at a campus where we had such a program like that, and students were identified and they were kind of undercover, and their job was just to hang out and walk the halls and see who looked like they might need a little bit of help. So I was just wondering if that was something that was being presented as a possibility at some of the districts, at some of the campuses. I know that we have athletics and fine arts and JROTC, but would that also be able to include clubs? Because
Yes.
not everybody can throw a ball or dance or...
Absolutely. So the student leadership opportunities. So we have a program called Student to Student. It's through the
Right,
military.
yes, yeah.
Okay, so that is essentially at every single one of our campuses where the students are able to make those connections with those students who are new to our district. So that way, if they're highly mobile, if their families are in the military, or if they're highly mobile because they're at risk, something happened, we want to make sure that the kiddo can always say that they have a home when they come to our campuses. So our students, I mean, if you guys have not seen when an elementary student comes over to welcome a new patron to the campus and walks them around and says, this is where the nurse's office is, this is where the principal's office is. They walk them around the entire campus. We are also able to give them football tickets. We sit with them at lunch. Those are pivotal moments and super critical to the success of that student. So this is just one of many programs. We have PALS as well. We have AVID that are constantly going out there making those connections with those kids. That serves as kind of like an ambassador system.
And Ms.
Yes.
Cox, this is not an exhaustive list to Dr. Munoz's point.
Sure.
There's constantly things that campuses are doing outside of these things here. This is really the big overarching strategies that we're implementing, but it doesn't exempt us from those other things that we know are meaningful for kids.
Sure, no, and I've just seen it at the local level. My high school students started the crochet club, and so she's started that, and now the teachers come, and so they kind of have this extra special, different space to kind of interact, and I think it's serving more purposes than creating blankets. So I appreciate this effort. One other question is, how do you gather, I'm interested in how you gather the information to figure out what the student interest is.
So we have student interest surveys that go through a variety of ways. One of the biggest, landmark features that we have is that we have a career interest survey that kind of lends itself to not only the course request information, but also the exposure to certain programs and accessibility to those programs. So usually, let's say, for example, the career and tech education department will receive this information, which is through a platform. Students take a quiz. It basically gives us insight on what their interests are, and then the counselor has those conversations with those students to say, have you tried, enrolling in AVID? Have you tried enrolling in PALS? We have an athletics department in the feeder high school, so it lends itself to that conversation piece because we know that interest is there. Especially for magnet programs, we are also able to recruit a lot of students who may be interested in education, engineering, so on and so forth. We use those student results as well.
What's the response rate on the survey?
So our goal is to get 100% of our students to answer that survey. And so we've been pretty close. We've gone up exponentially. So right now we're between 90-95% of our students who are answering that career interest survey. But it lends itself to scheduling, course enrollment, so on and so forth.
And that's kind of how we knew real estate could be a thing. Okay.
Yes.
And Mrs. Cox, I was going to say, to reiterate what Mr. Jared said, is that I know when we developed the district scorecard, we talk about student engagement and sense of place and belonging and that kind of thing. And that was the pure intent of the crochet club, to the football team, to theater arts, to whatever that student is interested in, we want them to get involved. And I know some are more quantifiable than others, so it's, you can show that we had a 3% increase in this or whatever, but the district, the intent is to really encourage participation and find whatever that place is for you. So that's it. Ms. Chichi?
So I am maybe not reading this right. When I'm looking at the early literacy, third grade star reading and third grade star math, slide 45 probably. Yeah. So was our goal 63%, but we actually made it 52%?
That is correct. The top percentage was the goal, and the score is that bottom percentage.
And the goal came based likely, I'm guessing, on 22-23 data that we knew incrementally 63 was reasonable.
So those goals were set on the last 5-year plan for the House Bill 3 goals. And so, again, the longitudinal data, and they were adjusted as per previous goals.
Yeah, so, and I'll just say this, these goals were set, in that legislative session, they had a goal of 60 by 30, which is 60% of our students are college ready by 2030. So the max where we're trying to get to meet the state goal is that 60% of our students are reading on level by 2030.
Okay.
60% of our kids are college ready by 2030. So that's why these goals were set at that threshold.
So we're working on that. Yeah. So then,
I'm not sure, Mr. Jarrett, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in the process, an accountability system changed and assessments
well,
changed. and
that's what I want.
Yeah,
Things get, I mean, that's, I think, and Ms. Chidgey, I thought that's where you were kind of thinking.
Well, I thought
is-
that's what I might have heard, but
Right.
because I'm unsure about
Sure.
that 52%.
And this is what becomes difficult, as we've all discussed, right? You're trying to set goals longitudinally, believing that factors today will be the same factors in 5 years. Unfortunately, they're not.
Right, the game changed.
Well, yeah. I mean, either the game changed, the rules changed, something. And so with those moving targets, it starts to get really hard. And this is where trying to convey information to people becomes such a challenge. And I think for some in this state, this is what they seize upon because it tells the story they want to try to tell, minus some very important information along the way, such as, yeah, but you changed some stuff. That's not the same assessment that you were. I mean, even the Commissioner of Education says, hey, you can't compare one year to the other, right? But in this, we have to.
Okay.
We have to.
Okay. And then tell me about, what is the multiplier for AP courses?
I don't know that offhand, but I can get that for you.
1.15?
Yes,
For-
but I don't
for-
want to say the wrong thing on record, so let me get the correct number for you.
And so AP gets, AP courses get a multiplier, dual credit and on-ramps do not, is that right?
They all get a multiplier.
They all get a
Yeah,
multiplier.
so
They
it
get a
counts towards their
different
GPA rank.
multiplier.
I can't say that on record. And but all of those count towards that CCMR bonus that that Byer was saying, because one of the things that you'll notice is that our dual credit numbers were lower, and that was pointed out, correct? So dual credit requires that a teacher has a master's degree in at least 18 hours in that content area. It is very difficult at times to find teachers to do that. So what we did is diversified our portfolio by offering at least 3 vehicles for kids to earn college credit. All 3 of those vehicles gain access to college, plus that counts towards our college readiness component. And so that's why you'll see a difference in the numbers there.
Right, and it's important to note, this is one of my things, is each one of those ways, yes, you earn college credit, but depending on where you're going is actually the type of college credit you want to earn. So like dual credit transfers to SAC and to UTSA, but it doesn't necessarily translate to A&M or UT, because they can deny it.
Right.
AP credit, you would think is universal, except it's not either. So I can tell you from my own daughter, they actually, A&M denied some of it based on her programming. On-ramps is the one that they can't. Like, so if you earn on-ramps dual credit, yeah, it's going to transfer, because that's, I believe, in the law.
Correct.
Right? It's in the law. It's codified in law, so they can't. I'm excited about this right here because this is actually in the legislature this year to talk about this denial at the post-secondary level where they're denying our children their credits. Because, and I've actually, Ms. Caldwell's heard me talk about this, median home income in San Antonio is like $63,000. So these students and families are going through and taking these dual credit opportunities, whether it's dual credit on-ramps or AP. They're getting to college, they're denying them. Now all of a sudden they've made college too expensive to these families. And so the legislature is actually really interested in this to start rectifying it because they see that inequity in the system now. Because Ms. Landry, if you've got a kiddo and they've earned 18 college hours and you land and you think, hey, I actually have a lot under, and now I'm denying you, and oh, by the way, of those 18 hours, I'm going to count 3. That's huge, right? So
along those lines, sort of a general question related to that, are we working with the schools to make sure that those college advisors, counselors are helping our students say, okay, you want to go to college, you have these 5 on your list. Either we have the resources to tell you where to go find it, or we're advising them to go find this at the college to say whether or not that AP exam or the dual credit is actually going to count. Because I know there's, similar to what Dr. Micah said, there's some families I think that are strategizing and say, well, I'm not going to do AP, I'm not going to take the exam, which can hurt us because we're trying to increase that, but they're strategically saying, well, I'm going to be an engineer, and so I have to take calculus anyway, so I'm not going to take the AP exam to place out of calculus because they're going to require me to do it. So are we helping our students and families navigate that to understand what the best course is for?
I'm going to answer it this way. I don't know if we can give any absolutes because higher ed makes their own rules. And so what's challenging is trying to discover the exact course of study that kids need to take depending on their universities. So we make the recommendation on the core subjects that are usually the most transferable for kiddos. That's the best course of action. It's always value add if a child takes on a college level course because that one foot in the door increases the probability of them continuing and completing college. And so we stay the course on that, but to be absolute and say, you should take this course because it'll transfer, that's the challenge. And I think that's what Dr. Mike is getting at, is that his kiddo goes to college. Many of her courses may not transfer. My kiddo went to a private school and almost all of hers did. So it's hit or miss is where we're at.
And not to tell them they have to, but just remind them to do the research. I mean, we're not going to tell them what they can or can't take.
But Mr. Byer, what we do, and Mr. Jarrett has emphasized this to our CCMR specialists and our counselors as well through Dr. Munoz, is that to help parents understand the difference between the 3. That's ultimately, like, we can't tell you, hey, if you're going to pursue this and you're going to go because the child doesn't know where they're going to, whether they're going to get admitted or not. But it's just understanding, and the real simple piece is, hey, if your child's not a great test taker, they're sharp, but they get test anxiety or whatever, stay away from AP because it's just going to stress you out, like it just is. So we can have those conversations to help them make more informed choices about which one fits their child better, but never knowing whether that institution, because I said to him, hold on, your kid got all of hers counted? I was like, well, that's not right. Because she did. And my daughter's now experiencing it because she's like, I should have had my Aggie ring already, but because they denied me these credits, I didn't have it. Well, but you start to see these things, and then they start comparing, but it's the path she chose, or that field she chose, they have different guidelines than another program at that same institution.
Right.
So you can't even forecast it.
And some context for the new members, this year's seniors are the first graduating class under the new multipliers.
And it is 1.15,
Yes.
1.08.
Oh, I had
So
just got it.
1.15 is for AP.
For AP or AP dual, and then dual and isolation and on-ramps is 1.08.
And so, Dr. McGinn, to Mr. Byers' point, I do know some individuals who went to the higher institutions and got the criteria for the accreditation and actually negotiated with the institute. And this is going from one higher education to another, looking at apples to apples. You really can't generally get that, but I wonder if there is an opportunity for us to work with the institutes that our students tend to go to, and we have that broken out, and look at their actual accreditation mapping and align that with our courses to ensure that those pieces are met.
Yeah, we get a lot. If you look, go to SAC, go to UTSA, pretty much any of those will transfer over because SAC is where we're getting our dual credit through. So those things seamlessly transfer locally.
So then the majority.
It becomes then as you start to branch out after the local area. That's where it starts.
But we're covering the majority then?
Yeah, we're doing that for any, and again, some of it, and Mr. Jarrett said they make their own rules. I was over at CTEC having a conversation with a young man, super sharp, who is talking about going to SAC, and I said, because he said he's looking at the Alamo Promise, and I said, well, are you aware of UTSA and that you could actually go out there and take their, I think it's their Bold Promise? And he's like, no. So you even see a lack of, and this is where I think these higher institutions need to do a better job of getting down to our level. They're all wanting us to do their work for them, and they need to come down and speak to our students and say, here's what's available to you. And not just our students, but to our families, because the family needs to understand it as well at a really in-depth level. And so those are the kind of conversations we have about how can you bring it down to us. Oftentimes they're wanting us to do it for them, and I think they can do some slightly better things about coming down to our level and having conversations at our schools with our kids, kind of like a military recruiter does.
Right, and you would think that
they
there's
hang
a
out in school and
incentive for them to do that.
Correct.
I'm going to let Ms. Thompson go. She was hanging out here waiting.
Just a couple of things. Do you know percentages of our students who are enrolled in AP dual credit and on-ramps? Do you have percentages broken down of what percentage are in on-ramps, what percentage are in dual credit, what percentage are in AP, which is highest, or?
Yeah, so we have CCMR meetings 3 times a year with our high school campuses to increase performance and also increase enrollment and to highly encourage students to, when they have that AP potential, which is through the PSAT, which we offer 9th, 10th, and 11th grade students, we let them know these are your opportunities and options. So we have seen that percentage go up by maybe like 3, 4, 5% increments.
Yeah.
And so it depends on the campus. In some particular cases, they have more offerings in AP than they have dual credit, than they have on-ramps.
Yeah, Dr., do we have that data at the
Yes, we
district
do.
level?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
It's in the TAPR that
Okay.
was shared earlier, and this basically just shows where AP is 32%, on-ramps at
that's right.
16.6%, and dual at 13.1.
And that is a year in the rear, just as a reminder.
Another one of my questions was, what type of CCMR opportunities are there in middle school?
So our main focus is to be able to get our students to eventually become completers. So as Dr. Micah was just talking about, that the state has a tendency of sometimes changing the rules of the game. In the middle of the game, we're actually facing that right now. So we are in the process of funneling in more principals courses for CTE down into the middle school range so that way students can gain that exposure and follow that pathway to eventually become a completer for industry-based certifications. We will not get the credit in the next 2 years, if I'm not mistaken, by 2027. We will not get the CCMR credit if students do not complete 3 courses for 4 credit hours plus the industry-based certification for the CCMR indicator. Right now, a student can complete 2 to 3 classes, get the IBC, and right now they're considered a concentrator, so we'll get credit for CCMR. Well, in years past, there were other districts who were funneling in kids to take IBCs, just go in and take it. Well, the state got wind of that, and they said, you know what, we need these students to start and end a pathway successfully and then pass that IBC before we grant you that particular indicator. So we're funneling those levels of exposure down to career
And I really
pathways.
hate this. Like, I really, really hate this. And I've had lengthy conversations with our legislative folks, because part of going to middle school and high school is figuring out who you want to be. And I've used my own personal child who dabbled in so many things until he found his love. He doesn't count in this new system because he bounced around and didn't take a succession of classes. And what frustrates me is you are asking 15, 16, 17-year-olds to know what they're going to do the rest of their life and stay true to it. It's like, not every kid does that. Like, I didn't know what I wanted to do at that age.
It's like changing your major.
Right.
When you're in college.
And so, but we did it to ourselves as a system because some districts started gaming it and pushing kids in. I think we talked to you, I think Brandy actually did, about Google's important, but is that really a class that we should be calling, right? What was the other? Microsoft. Right? Like, that's that component to it. And so what the state tends to do when they find bad actors is they don't punish the bad actor, they punish the system. And that's what you have here. And so, and then let me take this one step further, because I'm on a high horse right now about this. But this actually, but I want you all to understand, like, and I think Brandy talked a little bit about this, maybe. For smaller districts with smaller number of offerings, you're going to have more completers, simply because you have less choice. But in Northeast, where we've put a lot of emphasis, what you were just talking about is creating a space for all of our kids, right? To feel good, whether that's athletics or a social, or whatever club you want it, right? Well, let's take that now into pathways and things like that. We offer so many classes. You could jump around from welding over to electrical to HVAC. Now, you've taken 3 wonderful classes, but because you didn't do it in succession, you don't count. So offering the plethora of options that we do may actually end up hurting us now, rather than, that's why I think, and what I would encourage you, is when you look at all this accountability stuff, there's some things count, but it doesn't mean it counts. Because I think it's more important that we continue to give our student body the options to choose what they're trying to figure out, rather than try to play some game of accountability to make a score go up and pat myself on the back, full well knowing that it really wasn't good for kids to begin with anyway. It's my belief.
Right, we're growing people.
Right. Well, we're allowing kids to explore. If you didn't watch the last week's, that young man over at C-Tech in the HVAC place, like, y'all, listen, I know a little bit about HVAC. That young man, who is a senior, is going to graduate. That kid could go open a company tomorrow running an HVAC industry. That professor's just over there, who happens to be a Mac teacher. He's trying to get him to choose a different one to just boost him up, because he's like, look, he runs kind of the class. He does. Like, he's installed whole HVAC units over there. They're running in that lab. He's teaching students how to do it. Well, did he complete? I don't know, but I think he's plenty skilled to get out into the world. Whether he counts or doesn't count in the system. Right? Like, I think we did right by him.
My last thing is, I want to advocate for the state to change from approaches so that people know that that is passing. but that's a whole nother thing. It is passing.
Ms. Shelton, did you have some questions?
Ms. Thompson, ask all my
Oh,
questions.
look at that. Well, I'll be interested to see what the legislature does. If you said they're taking up some of this with CCMR and AP and dual credit and on-ramps, and you know, I know I sat in a session a couple of years ago. I think it was a school district east of here that's looking at multipliers and stripping them out of everything except for core classes, and trying to work with universities and figure out what their pathway is. So I think as long as we're keeping tabs on those kinds of initiatives and trying to figure out, because one question I did have is, or something we also need to be looking at, is not just increasing the number of kids that are taking AP and dual credit, but making sure that we're keeping track of the number of kids that are passing, so that we're not just that we're encouraging kids to do a class that either they're not ready for or don't need, but just really looking at that back end of it to keep track of things. I know we are, but that's my soapbox.
And I just want to make one comment about the people that are gaming the system. I feel like we're encouraged to game the system with this convoluted system that seems to beat us down, seems to figure out how to make us appear worse than we are by terms like approaches or changing the game in the middle. So I'm not advocating gaming the system, but I'm advocating fairness for our kids, and I think you all do a great job with this, so thank you for your report and
Ms.
taking care of
Gigi,
our kids.
couldn't agree with you more, and I've had that discussion with some of our legislators. You're so focused on punishing people for gaming it. The question that I posed, and I believe I wrote it in an op-ed, was why do they feel the need to do it? Right? Like, rather than thinking that because it's become so punitive. So people feel this component to do it, right? That's where I think the whole system needs a rethink, and that's what I advocated for. Sit with parents, students, educators, and let's quit trying to hodgepodge this accountability system into something that it's obviously it's not. Let's just reboot the system, make it make sense again.
Any other questions? All right, thank you all very much. Appreciate it. Item 10, Superintendent Comments. Dr. Micah.
Yes. All right. You may have seen that our efforts as a school district for military students to acclimate to our new schools and communities was featured in the latest issue of On the Move, the official magazine of the Military Child Education Coalition, which is a really big honor. That is what Dr. Munoz was talking about, our student-to-student. You know, they featured the fact that every one of our schools now are designated as Purple Star. I don't know if I shared this with you or not, but MSEC actually reached out to me because TEA reached out to them to create videos about how to do this at the state, and they are actually going to feature Northeast and in us with those videos. So kudos to all the folks that make that happen. I know, Dr. Munoz, you've been with me since I wanted that done, so it's great to see it come to fruition. Look, I love this young man. I don't know if you all saw, but Tristan Lee, he is one of our cyber warriors that went on and competed 4 times in Bethesda, Maryland, and actually won the all-service division of it. But he is a Roosevelt grad. He was a presidential scholar of ours, and he is currently at the U.S. Naval Academy. He just participated in the procession for the former U.S. President Jimmy Carter. So Tristan's company was selected to participate in the funeral procession, which, if you ask any folks in the military, including Colonel LaChance when I spoke to, that is a huge honor for that young man. So kudos to Tristan. It's great to see him continuing to do great things. And then last, look, y'all, it is School Board Recognition Month, and for especially our new trustees. You know, I think sometimes folks run for the board and you don't really know what it is until you're there, right? I can remember, for those that you may or may not know, In 1995, when I became a teacher, I walked across the threshold of my first elementary school and said, I want to be a superintendent. All right? I really did. Nothing prepared for me to sit in that seat. And I love a former superintendent that I've listened to over the years said, you know, Sean, remember this. You're never a better superintendent than when you're not. Because you don't know the weight of the chair until you're in it. Y'all, you have the weight of a chair that you get paid $0. And I think there's a lot of misinformation that you all think you're paid. You are not paid. You volunteer your time. And I love one of the trainings where you are entrusted with information that not everybody knows. And you have to take all of that and weigh a very diverse community's needs and try to do what's best for 56,000 students, 8,300 employees, and hundreds of thousands of community members. I just want you to know that we do appreciate you. A lot of our staff appreciate you. A lot of our community appreciates you. But nothing ever prepares you to sit in the chair until you're in it. And it's always easier to sit when you're not because you don't have the weight of those decisions on you. And I've never forgotten that advice, and I would encourage you all to remember that as well. It's a difficult task, and you do it with grace, you do it with honor, and truly, I can honestly not think of another service that you all do for free in the world. Like, you know, most boards are paid in some fashion. You're just not. And sometimes we're out, you know, till 10, 11 at night, and you're still smiling and you still show up. Oh, you do it for the bundt cakes. But really, y'all, I want you to know on behalf of all of the employees in the Northeast and my executive staff and myself, thank you all for what you do. Please know that we do appreciate you. We understand the burden you all each individually carry, and we appreciate that you give of your time as much as you do. So thank you. That's all. Thank you, Mr. Bond.
Thank you. I wish we could call it a night after that, but we have business.
No, sir. I need you to do some business for me real quick.
All right. Item 11, new business for possible board action. A, instruction and campus administration. 1, possible action regarding wage payments during school closures board resolution. Mr. Jimenez.
Thank you, President Byer, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff and guests. Shiloh Whitten, Executive Director for Human Resources, will address this agenda item.
Good evening. Tonight, we present for your consideration and approval a resolution to address wage payments to employees who are instructed not to report to work should the district deem it necessary to close schools due to a forecast or occurrence of inclement weather. In order to pay employees who are idle during school closures, the district must take steps to avoid improper use of public funds by adopting a resolution at an open meeting. In past school years, we have presented this action and resolution after there has been a weather-related closure. Unfortunately, payroll deadlines and scheduled board meetings do not always align with these unforeseeable events. Since Texas weather can be unpredictable, we wanted to be proactive and plan for the potential need to close schools due to weather conditions. Therefore, the resolution seeks your approval to ensure employees are not negatively impacted by an emergency closure and serves the public purposes of maintaining morale and reducing turnover. Before the board takes any action, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Whitten. Does anybody have any questions? Ms. Shelton?
So if I'm scheduled to be off on this day and there happens to be weather closure, will we give them that time back, that vacation day back?
Yes, so we have gone back in and removed those absences when that occurs.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution regarding wage payments during emergency school closures for the 2025-2026 school year?
So moved.
Thank you. Is that correct? 2025-2026?
I'm sorry, sir? 2024, 2025.
2024-2025. There's an error on our, Okay, so 2024-2025 school year. Did I have a motion? Sorry. Okay, Ms. Shelton, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Chichi. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Ms. Whitten.
Thank you.
Item 2, possible action regarding HB3 Board Goals 2025 through 2029. Mr. Jarrett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Micah, members of the board, executive staff, and guests, I would like to ask April Muskies and Dr. Munoz to come forward for this agenda item. And Ms. Reve Schaefer.
Good evening. As we had discussed in our scorecard review and our TAPR review, all of these documents will actually come together with our House Bill 3 goals. So as a district, we are required to align all of our efforts towards that 60 by 30 that Mr. Jarrett had just referenced earlier today, which is that at least 60% of Texans aged 25 through 34 will have a certificate or a degree by 2030. So in order for us to be able to attain that particular feat, we have to look all the way down to early childhood literacy, early childhood math, and then how that correlates with that process of attaining that college, career, military readiness piece. And so each of us is going to go ahead and present our own respective levels and go through our goals as a district.
We'll start with the Early Childhood Literacy Board outcome goal. The percent of third grade students that score meets grade level or above on STAR reading will increase from 53% to 68% by June 2029. I also want to bring your attention to the Closing the Gap student group's yearly targets. 2025 goals are highlighted in green throughout the slides that you will see. Progress measure 1 is the percent of pre-K students that score on track on phonological awareness on wave 3, which is the end of the year assessment of circle literacy, will increase from 69% to 79% by June 2029. Early literacy progress measure 2, the percent of kinder students that met or exceeded their growth goal on MAP reading will increase from 53% to 63% by June 2029. Progress measure 3, the percent of first through third grade students that met or exceeded their growth goal on MAP reading will increase from 50% to 60% by June 2029. And what we see here is our targeted professional development plan, specifically for early childhood literacy outcomes. Then we move into our math, early childhood math board outcome goal. The percent of third grade students that score meets grade level or above on STAR math will increase from 44% to 59% by June 2029. Progress measure 1 for early childhood math. The percent of pre-K students that score on track in math on wave 3, again, the end of the year assessment of the Circle Math Diagnostic, will increase from 79% to 84% by June 2029. Progress measure 2 regarding early childhood math, the percent of kinder students that met or exceeded their growth goal on math will increase from 55% to 65% by June 2029. And progress measure 3, the percent of first through third grade students that met or exceeded their growth goal on math will increase from 54% to 64% by June 2029. And here's our early childhood math targeted professional development plan.
So between early literacy on the way to college and career military readiness, we wanted to make sure we set goals in the middle. And so you'll notice that CCMR progress measure 4 is intended to increase the percent of students enrolled in one or more advanced academic courses or CTE courses for high school credit each year from 65% to 70%. So some of the courses that you heard a little earlier from Dr. Munoz, providing those opportunities in middle school, is one of those opportunities that exist in this goal for us. Progress Measure 5, percent of sixth grade students that score meets grade level or above on STAR reading, yes, will increase from 57% to 72%. We know this is an aspirational goal, and in a new era of STAR and new accountability, we are setting our sights really high on what our system's capable of doing over the next 5 years. And then Progress Measure 6, the percent of sixth grade students that score meets grade level or above on STAR Math increased from 41% to 51% by June 2029. On the way to college and career and military readiness, targeted professional development so that we know what types of advanced courses we can have offered at middle school, CTE opportunities available at middle school, and then of course always working on literacy and math every single day, every year from start to finish.
And so as they start in elementary early literacy and early math, going in through middle school, and then now looking at our progress measure for CCMR. And so we've set our goal pretty high, ultimately because we do know that we have some pretty strategic measures that are being put in place from middle all the way through high school. So our increase that we would like to see is from 69.6%, which is where we landed, to 80% by August 2029, with our goals listed there by student population. If you notice there, we do have an asterisk, and like I had just mentioned before, right by that 74%, and then you have a double asterisk at that 76%. That is when we will have that final completer status, CCMR indicator component that TEA just changed the rules on. That's actually when we're going to see the results of this change. So the percent of annual graduates that are considered college ready, which is the TSI, AP, dual credit on-ramps, SAT, and ACT, all the acronyms under the sun, we are looking at increasing that from 53.2% to 63% by June 2029. And again, this is optimal for us to be able to go back and evaluate our programs through our professional development plans, and if any adjustments need to be made, we can present those to you all as well. Along with our percent of annual graduates that are considered career or military ready. So we have that increase of 34.4% to 44%. And again, with that concentrator versus completer status and how that is now going to be part of these indicators. TEA just recently released that they're going to be able to start tracking when students from any district join the military. Prior to, we were not getting as much credit as some of our students were actually going. Now TEA is working in partnership with the military and multiple branches to actually give credit to those districts. So that percentage may change as well. And now we have our last progress measure, which is the percent of annual graduates who have met college readiness benchmarks in reading and math. Going back all the way to early literacy and math, this is where everything comes to fruition, increasing that from 45.4% to 55% June 2029. Again, with the idea that if we can continue to move that percentage up, we will do so. So strategically, there is a lot on this menu of items for professional development. However, it is very specific per area. So CCMR has specific attainment for CCMR by grade level opportunities, also including special education programs, making sure that we're leveraging our elective courses as well. College readiness, making sure that our students are connected to AP Classroom along with our students and families, making sure that we have those resources available, which we do. The exposure to those resources, not just to our campus, but our students as well. Making sure that we're educating our families on what we have available as well. And then the CCMR readiness piece, being able to provide those opportunities for those assessments, making sure that our campuses are able to have those professional learning community meetings during the school day. Sometimes it's virtually. If you're a CTE teacher and you're a singleton at a campus, we want to be able to get you to connect with that other singleton at that other neighboring campus. Making sure that we have district-wide curriculum, this is the first of many rounds that we have gone through with the evaluation of curriculum. Making sure that alignment of what course is being offered and the curriculum that is being offered is the same. And there is room for growth, especially with the IBCs, and making sure that all of our plans and all of our curriculum documents align to that eventual completion status. And do you all have any questions?
Thank you very much. Ms. Landry, you have a question?
And I'm pretty sure I asked this last time, but the completion status, we have up to a year after graduation to capture them in that status, right?
Yes, and so we have that opportunity, especially since it is a year in the rear, we're able to continuously capture throughout. We also have to verify, and Brandy has also made this commentary where we have to be able to ensure that what we are reporting to the state is actually verified by our district. So sometimes they may not account for all of our points, so we have to be super diligent in saying, yes, these particular students did attain it through these measures and they're not showing up in that report for the state. So they do give us that opportunity.
Okay, great, thank you.
Ms. Thompson?
I just have a question, and Mr. Jarrett, you had talked about it earlier. On the teachers who are teaching UT on-ramps, what is their criteria to be eligible to teach those classes, and what training are they getting?
So the first rule is find a really good teacher. The second rule is get a really good teacher to attend a 2-week training at UT Austin. Those teachers, once they attend the training, they then have to do a retrain every single year for 3 days, I believe. And then they also have check-in twice a year, one in the fall and one in the spring with the college professor. And so they're basically dually enrolled in UT Austin and in Northeast. They can accept the credit or deny the credit for UT Austin, so they choose what their transcript will look like. But essentially, it allows the kids to have access to a university and our ISD.
Well, my kiddo is doing it. I just didn't know what the teachers.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Okay.
For your initial, I guess, learning profile, if you will. And then after that is 3 days every single year, as long as you're teaching the course.
And do the students get a pass-fail, or do they get a grade that carries over?
They get a grade, so they can accept or decline.
That's what they accept, or?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep.
Now, if they do reach a particular percentage of the 70, and they do get that C, we still get the credit even though the student did not accept that particular credit for the course. So we will still get the CCMR indicator for that student if they met that criteria.
Oh, Ms. Villarreal, do you have a question? Okay. So this is kind of a big, broad question, but the percentages are generally 2% a year growth on most of these indicators. Is there a specific reason for that? Because there are some that are like 1%, but
yeah.
Did it just work out to be an even number, or we?
I actually like odd numbers better, but typically you grow 2 to 3%, but you look at your historical trends. If you're not exceeding that 3% historically, then you set it at what is an attainable goal. And so what we do is try to create SMART goals, because then you're able to see the growth. If you saw in the scorecard update, you saw where we grew in 1.7% or so. We redid the goals with higher numbers. And so it doesn't stop us from accelerating, but we also don't want to be unrealistic.
Thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Thank you for the presentation. I guess no other comments. Would anybody like to make a motion to approve the House Bill 3, HB 3, NEISD goals for the 2024-2025 school year as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Shelton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Villarreal. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Item B, operations. 1, possible action regarding Hidden Forest Turf Field Project. Ms. Caldwell.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Micah, executive staff, and guests. Last month, we brought you a presentation about our school park initiative at our campuses, that partnership with the City of San Antonio and San Antonio Sports and the school district. And in that presentation, I mentioned that City Council District 9 had asked for community input through a participatory budgeting process. And a member of the community came forward about doing an artificial turf installation at Hidden Forest Elementary within the walking track. And I showed you pictures of those walking tracks across the district. So tonight we're bringing forward to you the interlocal agreement that we received from the City of San Antonio, that with your approval to move forward would be signed by Dr. Micah and our staff would create the scope of work, timeline, and budget for. But within the interlocal agreement, the City of San Antonio has identified $210,000 for the installation of the turf field. You'll see on your agenda item that there are some additional costs to consider with ongoing maintenance of that field, the need to purchase equipment that would help us to comb that field and maintain it, vacuum it, so to speak, as well as an annual cleaning and testing cost that we engage with at our other turf fields that are part of our athletic program. So there would be some ongoing maintenance cost, and then any repair to the turf, any replacement of the turf when its use of life comes to an end would not be covered by any additional funds from the city. This is a one-time grant to the school district for the installation. So we're seeking action from you tonight on whether or not to move forward with the interlocal agreement that has been presented to the district.
I think a copy of the interlocal agreement was provided to everybody as part of your board packet. Do I have any trustees with any questions related to the interlocal agreement in this in general? Ms. Villarreal?
Obviously, yeah. Anyway, my concern is this, because this was brought up that in the past, we've had some issues where people would actually drag barbecue pits out on top of it and burn the turf and things like this. Does anybody have a thought process on how we can prevent that? Is there anything, because that could become very expensive if we're constantly having to take big, large swaths out of it and replace it. I don't even know how that's done. So does anybody have any clue what we're really setting ourselves up for?
The sparks by nature are open during non-school hours, so on weekends or in the evening time. We do not have monitors there to prevent people from doing anything in our locations. Any type of vandalism is always reactionary when something happens. So we would try to seek replacement if something was to happen. But as far as preventing that, there isn't anybody monitoring.
Would we have cameras, any sort of monitoring of that nature in this, even, so that we could hold people accountable if we can identify them using high-resolution cameras so you can actually see the face and the license plates and things like this? Because I would really like to, hold people accountable if we go forward with this, so that we're not on the hook for replacing things and having it be a continuous problem.
My hunch would be that would be part of whatever funding we're providing. I mean, it would have to fit within the budget that we're given to build.
So the money
to build
that's
the
been
field.
given to us is for the field, not to install additional cameras to monitor the field. So that would be a district expense that you would have to allow us to go forward with. Because we have cameras at the campus, but they are not directed at that field area for what you're describing.
Ms. Thompson, you had a question?
I do. So this was a fiscal year of 2023 that they allocated or had this survey and gave the 210. What is the actual cost in 2025 of doing this? And I want people to really know too that there is an annual cost associated with this that we are responsible for, that no one is giving us dollars for. But anyway, 2025, what's the estimated cost?
So at the time that an estimate was prepared from a vendor, which we would still have to go through the process of securing vendor according to procurement requirements, but at the time, that vendor had said they would hold that price for that time. So again, we would be going back out and following the procurement process to ensure that. There could be incremental changes, but I will say that the original estimate of what the additional cost would be, whether it's with the installation of the turf, the preparation of the ground, what's called the subgrade, And then the consulting, the geotech consulting to make sure that that subgrade is in fact done correctly, comes in under the 210. That is allocated by the city of San Antonio. So there is some padding or contingency money is what it's often referred to in that budget. But going back to your other comment about ongoing maintenance, absolutely. There would be ongoing maintenance costs, as I mentioned earlier. But what I didn't mention, of course, would be the time of our custodians and staff who would be doing that as well. So that campus custodian team would have an additional responsibility at that campus.
Okay.
Or our grounds crew, as another example.
Well, I wanted to say thank you to you for last time too, presenting pictures of all of our elementary campus fields so that everyone is able to see that we're equitable across every campus.
The $210,000 estimate, one, I'm surprised a vendor would hold that price for 2 years, but kudos to them. Was that somebody that we had given estimate, or did that come from the city of San Antonio, or did that come from San Antonio Sports? Who gave us that $210,000 figure?
My understanding of the history of that was part of the community conversation between City Council District 9, the community member who brought forward the request for this to be part of the budget. That was done through them and then brought to the district.
So then we are responsible for the design, correct?
Right, so if you were
And-
to approve us moving forward with the interlocal agreement, we would have the ability to do the scope, the plan, the
Right.
budget, and the timeline. So we would be, you're right, responsible for that design. And we would, of course, meet within that budgeted allotment.
Well, and the agreement says that it's $210,000, but if now it goes over that because of design materials, construction, on and on, we're responsible for everything. Is there any mechanism to say, well, now this is way more expensive than we thought it was gonna be? So we'd like to get out of this interlocal agreement. Is there a mechanism? I didn't necessarily see one in there, but.
There's not a mechanism that if we were to accept the $210,000, it's almost like a grant.
Well, it's a reimbursement.
It's a reimbursement,
Right.
correct. But it's treated in such that anything that is above and beyond that would be our responsibility.
And the reimbursement, it looked like it was a kind of month-to-month, monthly basis type of reimbursement to where it's, we have so many days to submit, and they have so many days to sit it to somebody else, and so, I mean, we would have to potentially front several thousands of dollars for 60 days on a, continuing basis throughout the design construction of this.
Yeah, and that's a very similar process with other City of San Antonio funding sources that we receive, where it is this reimbursement process where we provide invoices and things that meet their criteria, and they then send us that payment. So that's a normal process when we have participation with the city on something.
And then I guess the other thing on there, we talk about having to, potentially replace this in 10 years. I know that's probably the warranty on it, but do we have information that says we would have to replace it, other than obviously student safety and community safety? But I didn't see anything written saying you would have to replace it. It's just sort of a general rule, correct?
Yeah. No, because it becomes unsafe. So you just quit using it. You either replace it or you quit using it. That's the component to it, is that in 10 years, when that warranty expires, I'm looking back at Coach Parker, it then is deemed as unusable because it's unsafe. So it's replace or shut it down.
And part of that determination of if it's unsafe or not is in that annual testing. So there's an annual testing cost, there's an annual cleaning cost, because rain alone doesn't keep it clean. That testing will help us to decide when it reaches that threshold where we are no longer comfortable with having our community utilize it. And that 10 years is average use of life. Traffic or actual conditions can vary with that, but that's part of that testing process to ensure that we are not assuming 10 years when really it is a shorter time span.
So the sort of going forward part of this is, if for some reason this is not approved tonight, knowing that we've gone out and looked at these 14 different schools and the dirt lots that are out there, have we started looking at something we can do? Is there, I know with no dollars in our budget.
Pray for rain.
Pray for rain. I know last last meeting, there was some discussion about regrassing and that kind of thing, but now that this has sort of been brought to the forefront a little bit more,
Yeah, I think ultimately,
look
Mr.
at?
Byer, I mean, to try to regrass it when we have water restrictions, we're never going to get it to go, right? So, you know, at this point, I'm not sure what we can do to try to get these things back until we start to get some sustainable moisture over time. Because we plant grass and it's not, you know this, it's not going to go. It's just not, because we can't water it. The city has such tight water restrictions, they're not going to give us any sort of waiver to get this grass to grow. And then over time, you know, it's the thing. So I happen to be in Arizona, and, you know, a lot of what you see, those play areas out there are turf. Well, if that's what we're going to do because water's becoming strict, then we're going to have a different conversation about what that looks like and the cost, because in the scale. Because we'd have to be putting in a lot of those, and then we'd have to overcome what you're talking about, Ms. Villarreal, which is how to make certain that people are using it in a manner that's it's not destructive. And turf fields do take they take maintenance like anything. They're not maintenance free.
Ms. Landry?
So if we, for whatever reason, do not approve this tonight, is there an opportunity for us to still take advantage of the grant and utilize that money equitably across the, 14 elementary schools to improve the playground or any of the facilities that we have there?
Not at this time. That option's not on the table. This is specifically a city council District 9 earmark, if you want to think of it that way, that was brought forward through their participatory budgeting process and then funded through the city budget. So there is no mechanism at this time to extend it to other city council areas, which, as we saw through those pictures, cover many different areas of the city. And even you know, not all of our schools are even in the city. So if we start talking about equity across our school district, we of course are covered by multiple municipalities, or some schools are just county and are not within a municipality at all.
Can I ask that question a different way? Is there an opportunity to go back to the city and say, thank you very much for the 210. We would like to use it a different way. Can we reframe this agreement that you have in front of us?
So this is coming from the City Council District 9's office.
So can we go
The
to John
city-
Courage and say, Representative Councilman Courage, thank you for your 210. We'd like to use it a different way. Can we do, my question is, can we go make the ask? And is there, I know it was 2-year ago budget, right? So maybe the answer is no, but can we make that ask and say, we may need to use these funds differently?
We certainly can always have the conversation. I will say that we have had conversations, and Dr. Micah has met with him, and this has been their project.
Okay.
But we'd be happy to continue to have that conversation. But again, this is part of City Council District 9's discretionary funds. So each city council district
Understood.
has a amount of funds that they have designation over, in addition to the city of San Antonio's Public Works or Parks and Rec or what have you, parts of those budgets.
So to be very blunt, since Ms. Caldwell was so nice, we can ask, but it's not going to get approved. I don't believe that we're going to have a single piece, because that money could go back for some other project within that single member District 9.
Right.
But we'll ask.
Understood. I do think it's worth the conversation if we don't approve it tonight, because if they're giving us 210, right, if it's there, it's discretionary, and maybe we do have to use it in District 9, but what else could that look like? And then, are you done? I am done. Okay. And then my follow-on questions were really, how committed is the community to this project? Like, are our citizens saying, we've got to have this? we want this park. I mean, obviously someone went and wrote a grant or went and talked to John Courage. And is this something that they're willing to support to the tune of $10,000 every year for maintenance? Because my guess is, you know, I'm a mom, I'd be thinking, oh, that's great. But I wouldn't think beyond me going to get you the money. I'd be like, all right, I've handed you the football. But are they committed to what it takes to keep it going?
It was brought forward by a committee member, as you mentioned. To my knowledge, it was not voted on by that school's PTA, to my knowledge. I don't have record of a vote to
Okay.
show community support. Since that time of the initial request being made, we have been contacted by new PTA officers because there's been transition in that PTA who still have an interest in asking what is the status of this project, but I cannot speak if the entire PTA has taken action on it to show a support. I will say that in past projects across the district, whether it's a school garden or something along those lines, over time, you do lose investment and commitment to maintenance. We have seen that.
Ms. Shelton, here's my question to you. Are you saying that by that commitment on theirs, that the community's going to raise the $10,000 each year to maintain it? Is that what you're alluding to?
Mhm.
That's not how this works. So if you decide to approve it, the school district will then assume that responsibility.
So then
of
let me
that.
ask you my last question, and I wish Susie was here. Do we have $10,000 a year to maintain this field? Look, I'm just due
Yeah.
diligence. I'm asking the question. Do we have the money to maintain it?
If you all tell us that we need the money, I guess we're going to have to find it, but you're running a multi-million-dollar deficit.
So that's a no? Is that a no?
I mean, again, you are the board, so if you tell me, Dr. Micah, you're gonna fund this, I'm gonna say, okay, well, we're gonna have to figure it out. But are we flushing cash? Absolutely not. That's why, you know, we're looking at school consolidations and things because we are short on money.
So then the last, this is not a question, it's just a statement. I think it's incumbent upon us, and I don't know if that's you, Ms. Caldwell, or if that's you, David, to have the conversation with Hidden Forest to say, here's the reality of the situation. This is what it looks like for us as a district if we do this, and see where they stand before we just say, not going to happen, right? I think we had a lot of people here today, and they're concerned about us being transparent and making sure people are aware, and we're having the dialogue. So someone took a lot of time to get Councilman Courage to write a check.
Yeah.
I think before we say no, we need to have a conversation.
Well, and I think that begs the question, have we had those conversations?
Right,
with
and
Hidden
that was-
Forest at this point? And it doesn't sound like we necessarily have directly with Hidden Forest. And I don't know if that's with the school or with the PTA, but
Well, again, there was some initial conversation with a PTA
understand that.
staff that's not,
Yeah.
or PTA volunteers who are no longer there.
yeah, no, I get that. I think that's where the timeframe on this is kind of drug out a little bit. So, Ms. Villarreal.
Is there a way, speaking of that fabulous PTA, is there a way that maybe we could ask them if they could make it a fundraiser for the maintenance fees every, I don't know
Well, I
if
think the
that's even in
issue-
the scope.
The issue run into is just that
They can't commit for future
No.
years.
Right.
They
And the
can't?
PTA can commit for this year. We're going to raise
That's it.
$10,000. But this current PTA can't commit for 9 years from now. They don't even
Gotcha.
have kids at the school in 9 years or 8 years or 7 years. And as I understood it as a principal, it wasn't legal for
No,
us to
it's not.
commit for future years. So I like her
Understood.
statement, there's a lot of energy and so forth of what's going on today, but my kid's a 7th grader in the year you're talking about, and it's still a community park, so I understand the use of it, but we're not using it like we were. So I think it's important that we be transparent and talk to the PTA. I value what you just said, but I don't think we can ask them to commit. I don't think they're even
Able to, understood. I
legally
didn't know how
able to
that was.
commit for the next
Okay.
10 years unless somebody wants to donate that money now.
You know, frankly, with the deficit that we're running, I know the 210,000 sounds like a fabulous thing and, you know, on the surface, but if you're looking at it at $10,000 a year, you're looking at half of that amount, maybe a little over half by the time all things are said and done, during that 10-year period of time. And that's even if the stuff even makes it to 10 years, because it is an open park. And, you know, to put that kind of a financial burden right now, when we're talking about closing schools, and suddenly, you know, and we say, yes, we have this great grant, to me, it just doesn't seem feasible. Just looking at just doing a quick calculation in my brain, it just doesn't seem feasible. It's a great idea, but that's just my opinion.
Ms. Landry?
So if I remember correctly, this came to us in November of '22, about approximately 2 years ago. And a lot of these same conversations came up and a lot of these same questions. And I believe at the time, it wasn't necessarily the PTA that was bringing it, but a member of the District 9 had proposed, and then they had one of their neighborhood alliance meetings for District 9 and discussed it, and the community voted there, not so much as the PTA. And at the time, there was discussion about maintenance and the willingness for the district to provide for the maintenance. And it was pretty clear then that they weren't going to be able to do that. And I think the only missing point back then was the cost to maintain year over year, that we didn't know what that would look like until recently, right?
Mrs. Landry, your recollection is correct in that the community did vote through the participatory budgeting process. So City Council District 9 put forth project ideas that then City Council District 9 residents, not just the Hidden Forest community, but all of City Council District 9, had an opportunity to vote on projects, and the ones with the most vote rose to the top to get funded. And so, yes, there was at that time that willingness from the community to see this in their backyard with Hidden Forest. At the time that vote took place, the district was not engaged as the property owner. You weren't engaged as the property owner. And so once we became aware of the process, we started to ask questions, particularly about the soil preparation, because just laying down turf field onto existing soil is not always the best approach and not certainly the safest approach that we would want to engage in. So once that, at that time, the chief, our facility maintenance department, Dr. Micah got involved in those conversations. That's when we put a pause and asked, can we go ahead and do a soil assessment? So that's part of the delay throughout the process is the city, we went to the city and asked if they would be willing to pay for a soil study, which they were willing to pay for. Then we conducted that soil study to ensure what would be needed to prepare the ground for the turf. That increased the cost of the project beyond what District 9 had initially allocated in their participatory budgeting process. And so then the city of San Antonio needed to go to see if they could make up that difference. So that's a little bit of a quick explanation as to some of that delay as to where we are today. Of course, years have gone by. As I mentioned, the current PTA president has reached out and asked about the status of the project. So I do feel that there still is support for it, but I'm just not aware if they as a group have voted or are willing to commit to that piece. That conversation with the current PTA board at Hidden Forest has not taken place.
And so what we're really on the hook for is 10 years of maintenance at roughly $10,000 a year, or today's cost at $10,000. There's no telling what it'll be next.
Plus whatever's over the $210,000
right.
For the actual installation of it, which I'm leery of $210,000 to do. How many do we know how many square feet we're talking about?
It's a soccer field.
I mean, if it's
I
a soccer
can
field,
look that
that's
up in my plans. I don't have that
that's okay.
memorized.
I mean, that's a pretty significant area to put to to do artificial turf correctly. And I am not confident that $210,000 is going to cover all of that, but.
As a PTA lady, I do know for sure that when a PTA fundraises, it's their duty to spend the money that year on those students. So they cannot have a little cash kitty over here to say, we're going to pay for this. And just on a personal note, I can't stomach sitting here talking about closing schools and putting an artificial turf, which is so luxurious, at another campus. It's not right.
Questions? We'll let Ms. Shelton ask her question. Make her
I
comment.
hear you, Ms. Thompson. I think we owe it, though, to the people who did the work to have the conversation and honor the work that they did. I also would love for us to see if we can go have the conversation with Councilman Courage before he terms out to see if we can use that $210,000 for something else. And maybe he will only do it in District 9, right? But for something else that we need for our schools there to support the work that we're doing now, because it's already earmarked. And we changed this agreement so that it's not a soccer, it's not a big turf field, but it's something that we need. But I do think we have to have a conversation with the people who put this forward.
Sure. Anybody like to make a motion?
Yes, I
entertain
would
a
like to
motion?
make a motion to reject the action regarding Hidden Forest Turf Field project.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second?
Second.
Oh, I seconded.
You second.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
You don't know when you're just seconding it.
So I have a motion and a second to, I guess, reject the, disapprove the interlocal agreement as presented.
What, are we going to add a caveat to that?
Right now, it's to disapprove the interlocal, decline the interlocal agreement as presented to us. That is the current motion.
As presented, however, Tracy makes a,
As provided to us in our packets, the motion is to decline the interlocal agreement as it was given to us in our packets. Sorry, let me clarify that. So I have a motion and a second to decline the interlocal agreement as it was given to us in our packets, as it is currently written, with no other caveats. So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed say nay. This motion passes 7-0. All right. Thank you all. All right, item C, consent. One, business, okay.
We will make sure and go and revisit with him, okay?
With who?
With Councilman Courage
And?
and the PTA. We will let them know where it stands.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I heard that loud and clear.
I don't want to lose the money, Dr. Micah. Okay.
I will do my best to see if we can get it for something else.
Okay.
Or Ms. Caldwell will, but.
Okay. Thank you, Ms.
Again,
Caldwell.
it's ultimately,
In advance.
it's going to be up to him to decide whether it is or it is not.
All right, item C, consent. 1, business services, A, over 50,000 purchases. 2, operations, A, Reagan High School HVAC chiller replacement project bid delivery method and procurement of chiller units. 3, minutes from December 2024. 4, end of consent. Do I have any trustees wanting to pull any items off consent for discussion? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Landry. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Item 12, reports. A, interim financial and management reports. B, awarded bid report. C, federal grants report. D, open records request report. Those are all provided to you. Item 13, discussion and possible action regarding board members' requests for items to be placed on a future agenda and/or requests for reports from the administration. Do I have anybody wishing to request a report or agenda item? I have Ms. Landry had her.
Yes, I
line
would
up
like
first.
to add an agenda item for discussion and possible action regarding the Bluebonnet curriculum.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Okay, questions, comments about that item before we vote?
I'm sorry.
What-
Do we have to vote on someone's wanting to put something on the
On an
agenda?
agenda, yes.
I thought as long as we had two, that's what the bylaws say.
So the policy says that if it's requested at a meeting, we have to bring it up for a vote. If it's not a report that's already, if we request a report and it's not already put together by the district, then we have to vote on it because they have to spend time to put it together. If it is an agenda item for a future agenda, it has to be voted on by the full board. A trustee may also request to be put on an agenda via email with support of another trustee. That is what the policy currently states. So.
I'm
Yes, ma'am.
sorry.
That's fine.
And I have read
Ask away.
these, but I don't remember that. So, like, I have 7 things that I really want answers to.
Okay.
What you're saying, what I hear you saying is, for each of these 7 things that I want an answer to, everyone's going to have to agree that I can get an answer to those?
Depends on what they are, yes.
Okay.
Depending on what they are. Some things can be just emailed from Dr. Micah via his staff because it's just a question you have that can be sent to all of us at the same time. I think you asked for something related. Sorry, I'm getting off topic. Let me get to that one. We'll go with Ms. Landry's first. So she would like to have a presentation on the Bluebonnet curriculum. Is this, I guess my question is, when do we look at curriculum? When's the next time we would be reviewing? What part? Yeah, adoption. Thank you. When's the next adoption for curriculum? Do we know?
So math is coming up, but it's going to be sunset for this year. It's supposed to be coming up for this adoption year, but it's going to be sunset, I believe, correct, Esmeralda? And then English is two years out from now, at least.
Okay.
So sunset means we're going to
Sorry,
push it
let me
forward?
Yeah, sorry. Sunset means is basically we're supposed to be up for adoption. They're not sunset, I'm sorry, they're delaying it, essentially, where they're delaying it a year. So we won't get extra dollars to adopt new instructional materials this coming year. It may carry forward to another year, and then we have to continue with what we currently have for mathematics. That was supposed to be this year. And then ELAR is another 2 years.
Is there a specific part of the Bluebonnet curriculum we
So
need a presentation on, or?
The Bluebonnet, well, and I've got some information that I can provide for the presentation, but the Bluebonnet curriculum, from my understanding, is an all-inclusive kinder through 5 curriculum that includes mathematics, reading, science, and I forget what the other pieces are, but it's a whole curriculum for kinder through 5th.
Is this so who's giving the presentation, I guess?
Well, and I will be happy to provide something that I can share for the meeting, for the agenda item.
Can this be something that we can just, if you have documentation that you can just send to all of us instead of having, because if staff's not giving a presentation on something that they don't know, I would assume.
Well, it would still need to be an agenda item, which is, I'm not asking for a report, I'm asking for an agenda item.
I understand that. What I'm saying is, rather than an agendized item, if you have information that you want us to review, can you just email that to us? Rather than having a full presentation? Because I don't know that they would be able to do one.
I can send it through to the email to everybody, or through Ms. Turner. But we would also need a discussion and possible action on adoption of the
What would be,
curriculum.
so right now, there's a motion and a second to have a presentation about the Bluebonnet curriculum. Does anybody else have any questions? Sorry.
I do. I have a-
So
Dominic.
we're going to have, when it comes up for adoption, we're going to have, I'm going to make up some names here, Harcourt Brace or Houghton Mifflin, or are those going to do a presentation now? I mean, this isn't the calendar time that we would do a presentation for upcoming curriculum adoption. I mean, there's a timeline for it, and we're not within that timeline. Am I wrong about that?
Is that correct that?
There is
that-
timelines, so different subjects have a different timeline. So if you noticed, last year we had to adopt several CTE resources. So CTE was up for adoption. The state allocates instructional materials allotment, and then you go out to bid. You have presentations reviewed by staff, community, parents, et cetera. So that process comes every so often, and sometimes resources typically, was it 8 to 10 years is how much time we have to typically use them, and then you go through another adoption cycle is typically how that works. You can have ancillary resources that you can purchase through IMA, but as far as an adoption, you go through that process typically.
Frankly, if she's willing to bring something to the board and, share with us, maybe give her 10 minutes to explain, this may be something that we could look at, during the adoption process and lay it out on the table. I'm not familiar with this, and I would actually like to know what it is. I wasn't wildly impressed with what was brought to us by admin the last round. There were some things that were pretty shady in it. And it was my understanding that we were supposed to take a lot of it to the SHAC committee to have it reviewed.
No, this is.
Okay, but I know,
English
I
and
understand
math.
that,
This
but what
has
I would
nothing
like
to
to
do
do
with
before we
sex
get
ed.
embroiled in another, round, whether I'm sitting on the board or not, I think that we should explore some options. And even if it's giving her 10 minutes, if she's willing to do and bring forth, whatever it is, like I said, I don't know anything about this, but I'd actually like, now that she's brought it up, I'd actually like to know about it. And since if she sends the information to everybody, then we're actually creating a problem with the Open Meetings Act.
No, she can send it to Ms. Turner, and Ms. Turner can send it to all of us, and it's not an issue with the Open Meetings Act.
Well,
I just don't, if we're doing a presentation on one curriculum, one type of curriculum, then I think Ms. Chigi's point is, well, then we would have to open it up to everybody to come give us, because now we're just giving, so if there's I would be fine if you were to send information that you have. I don't know that we need to take up board time at a meeting to have a presentation when we have a standard process for curriculum. I mean, it can be lumped in with the same curriculum whenever that either math or English comes up. But I would be.
So who establishes the timeline for review of curriculum? Is that at each individual district, or is that by the state board the state board? Okay, so the state board just approved this curriculum, so I'm a little confused that we've got an 8 to 10 year time frame on the timeline.
And so Esmeralda, Dr. Munoz can probably speak to it better, but so you have an adoption period, which is what we're talking about. The state sets an adoption period for every content area. So recently they have what you call I forgot, is it bonus dollars or something like that, where some of these instructional materials can be considered as a yes and, is kind of what the state is essentially promoting, if you will. The math, Bluebonnet breaks it up where you have a math adoption and you can do an ELAR. So if math was going to be up for adoption as it was said at the time, then Bluebonnet would be a consideration along with other instructional material resources if we were going through an adoption cycle. When they delay the adoption cycle, then essentially we don't get any dollars from the state for this upcoming year until they start the adoption cycle. So that's kind of what that is. It's like basically they're having two different systems operating at the same time, a traditional and then I guess a extra funding source if you go through these HQIM resources.
It's the open educational resource, if I'm not mistaken. And so even though those are available, once we have other publication companies that come out with their opportunity to be able to showcase their resources, we try to do it as collectively as possible where they're able to see all resources, not just limited to one. So even though these are already available, once other publication companies release those materials for review, we bring several that are tied to that SBOE, so they're approved by the SBOE. We bring those for teachers to be able to review and go through the entire process the way we have year after year. It seems like we've had an adoption every year, and they do give us the opportunity to be able to have the 4 or 8 years or 2 years, depends on whatever the district wants to go with. And so ultimately, now that those are available, still we do have a revamp of math resources that it's coming through. So we want to put all of the resources available for teachers to review holistically through one rubric, through one system, through one approach for adoption.
And so that adoption for the K through 5 curriculum for each individual subject is broken out into different timeframes?
So initially we had, for example, we had the K-12 science. So we went through the entire adoption cycle for science only. And so math, now that it's part of the Blue Bonnet, that they have that opportunity for Blue Bonnet curriculum through the IMA funds that TEA gives us. Other publication companies are still putting together their resources to be able to showcase those to districts as well. And so now they've pushed back the timeline just a bit for about a year, if I'm not mistaken. So it was initially with, this is what you're doing on this year, this year, this year, but then with the release of these new resources, they've adjusted that timeline to meet that new resource and the availability for those additional funds.
And so, and I'm going to circle back because I know there are other districts that have adopted these, this curriculum, and I know there's some financial incentive from the state to use this curriculum. So are all districts on the same timeline? It sounds like.
We had initially, so TEA sends the timeline and had an initial timeline before Blue Bonnet curriculum ever came to be and the incentive ever came to be. So that is no longer an option for us. Now with this new type of curriculum and the availability for us to review it, we can review it as a district. It's ultimately up to the district to decide if they want to review that or not. But other publication companies have not released their most recent instructional materials for math, K-12. So we want to make sure that if we do offer that opportunity, once the presentation goes through and it's given to you all, and if that is going to be included, that it's included with everything like HMH, Cengage, and everybody gets to see everything that's available for K-12 math, not just one or the other. That's typically the way we've structured our system.
And is that pretty consistent across the board for other districts? Is that like a best practice that's conducted for most districts, or is that something unique that we do?
I've always known it to be best practice because we want to be able to put all the resources in front of our teachers all at once so they get to review everything holistically and they follow the rubric and everything that we've refined throughout these last few years. So most definitely, but districts do things in different ways.
Yeah, so
Mr. Jarrett, if I just may, the one thing I would say missing from the conversation is whatever curriculum it is, and Mr. Jarrett and I have talked about this, it's also the professional development that goes along with it. And it's the training of how to use it. So it's not just about choosing a book or a resource. It's also about how do you train your staff in order to use that resource appropriately, right?
And curriculum writing as well.
Correct. Like there's some other components that go into it. So I think that's why we've used it in this way is we put it in front of teachers, they let us know their thoughts, we go through this whole component to say, here's all the different resources you can have, tell us what you think is your best opinion of what resource that is, and then we start working backward from there.
And please note, the district can add, they can say yes on, they can even abandon what they originally adopted, but they won't have the initial dollars to purchase that curriculum. You will get the bonus dollars if you say, I want to do this now. most times, like if we were going through the math adoption, then Bluebonnet would be one of those that we would review, consider as part of that process. And then if that one hits all the marks on our rubric, then we would bring that forward, because it goes to what Dr. Micah said. It's not just a curriculum. It is the training. It is the follow-through. If you start purchasing several different curriculums, you can create chaos, because now you got too many things thrown at people at one time. And so that's why they put them on a certain funding biennium, and then you go through an adoption cycle. And that's why they don't roll out everything at one time, because there's no possible way that we will be able to get everybody trained in an effective way when we're a large district like this. And so that's kind of what it is. It's not saying you can't. It's just saying that you won't have the initial dollars. You will only have those bonus dollars to do so.
Mr. Jarrett, when you say the initial dollars, that's that pot of money that we're given to purchase the curriculum. Since we've already purchased, if we go with Bluebonnet, we'll have to find the money to purchase it.
Yes
No?
and no.
No,
So
okay.
you will have to find it, but the state has given some incentive that is $60 per student.
So it's not
if you
incremental.
adopt.
We
Right.
just get the incremental money.
Correct.
It's a wash for us. So it's not an extra for us because we've already purchased curriculum.
Right.
And so we've used that pot.
Yes, we have.
And so we would end up having to pay for it with
Depending on
what
the
we would
cost.
want as the extra money.
Yes.
Is that what? Okay.
That's correct. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
okay.
Okay, so this cadence occurs, and you said a year delay is?
So
we're
right now,
looking-
with the curriculum revamp or the redesign, if there are any TEKs that are changing, the state is releasing those as they come through as well. So for example, K-12 science, they changed their TEKs. And so looking at the way those TEKs fit in some of the publication or the release of instructional materials, some, I'm sorry, not campuses, but some publication companies had to rewrite their entire, chapter 2 of this particular textbook because it more closely aligns to the TEKs that are part of the system. And so essentially, if there is going to be a rewrite or a revamp, they also have to take that into consideration when designing this curriculum or these resources.
Right.
So now that we know that even though Bluebonnet is already available for us to review, other publication companies are still in the process of revisiting and reviewing to ensure that 100% of those TEKs, which is our district standard, are part of those instructional materials that we put in front of teachers.
And Ms. Landry, I don't know if it will help. We can get you the adoption schedule, so that way you
That
can
would be
see
great.
very clearly every adoption that's coming up. And I think it does 5 years out or something like that, so that way you can see, if that would help.
Yeah, that would be
Okay,
great.
we can
Thank
share
you.
it with Ms. Turner.
Thank you.
Well, I'm curious.
I will definitely share what I have, and I will send it to Ms. Turner
Okay.
within the week or so.
Do we,
So we don't need a.
we don't want to, okay.
Right.
You'll email through her.
Correct.
Okay. Any other trustees have anything they would like to add?
Okay, so there was a motion and a second on the floor, so we need to either, okay.
She revoked it, I guess. Well, she just said she revoked it, so. Any other reports, agenda items? Yes,
Yeah.
Ms. Jiggy.
So mine aren't agenda items.
Well, okay, actually, Ms. Shelton, I think,
Oh.
had beat you real quick, but. Okay, so can we go through with those, because depending on what those are, we may have to.
Gigi.
Can you read through what you're looking for, then that way we can determine which of those
Right.
can just be emailed to you?
I want to know if our students ride on the floor in our buses. And if they do, how often and what
Okay.
routes where we're overcrowded. I do not know what an equity audit is. I'd like to know what an equity audit is, if we've ever had one, what's the value of it, what does it show us? I would like to know what data on closures, if any, has been shared with our families. I've seen what's on the website, but if we've shared anything else, because I heard some things tonight. And I would like the board to have access to everything that was given to the, I was going to say facilities committee, but that's the wrong committee. To the efficiency committee, because I have not seen that data. I am curious because I think we have consolidated or closed schools before. What is the impact on property values when a school is closed? As you guys know, Wilshire is in my SMD, and it's on my daily walk, and it literally sits in the middle of a neighborhood. So what is the impact on property values when schools are closed? Given that we've probably done this before, historically, what does closing schools mean for the loss of students? What data exists? We had at least 2 moms today who came from SEISD schools that were closed, and now we're closing the school that they came to. So I want to be real clear and understand that. And then the last thing is I really need to know the plan. What's the plan for our students, teachers, but for sure, what's the plan for our students?
So I might suggest that, except for the first 2, the others will be a future agenda item. Meaning that we have these community meetings coming up, and this will be on an agenda next month, at which point it will be up for discussion and possible action. And so I understand you're looking for this information now. I think that's what I heard you saying.
I am, because my understanding is that we're expected to vote next month, and
correct.
We don't even have all the data, right? And so to get the data on Thursday and have to vote on Monday is unfair to the 7 of us, and it's for sure unfair to the people in SMD2, right, who I'd be voting on behalf of, without an opportunity to really digest it, turn it around, and have the really tough conversations. The 2 ladies, the one lady who mentioned my name, like, she was the very first person to email me.
Yes.
This is 1% of our population is being impacted, but it's so much more than that. And change management is a real thing, and we got to do it right. And so the board needs time. We need to see what the efficiency committee saw, be able to ask the questions, be able to turn some scenarios around. It may be the exact same answer, but I haven't seen it. And I don't know if the other 6 of you have, but I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not comfortable being asked to vote next month without having seen that.
Yeah, other than the presentation we got.
Which
we
highlighted the 3 schools. It didn't walk us through everything, which my understanding is that they walk through much more than that. And maybe right? So that's where I am.
So, Dr. Micah, of those,
So
what
you
are
can
we
have
able to provide?
all of those tomorrow.
Okay.
Those sheets we have, so we can email them to you all tomorrow. Not a problem. I'm sorry, I should have been writing.
A couple of them are,
So the plan, Ms. Shelton, has been really clear, and I'll tell you why some of this hasn't been coming out.
so before you get
Yep.
into that, can I'd rather not get into a discussion about it right here today, because we can't. But I guess the more direct question is, which of these things right now, the questions are, do we have students who ride on floors? I think you can get that answer
I
tomorrow.
can give you that answer.
What is an equity
Yes.
audit? I think you can
Yep.
provide that information
Yep.
via email to all of us, right?
Yep.
The data of the closures on the impact on families, if I have that correct. Oh, no, the data that was shared with the efficiency audit, or the efficiency committee, that's the information that we can be provided a link to, or whatever data
Yes,
the
you-
efficiency audit
Yes,
committee
sir.
went through.
Yep.
Because that already exists, so that would be all the, I assume, raw data that the committee went through. So the last 2 items, Ms. Shelton, one related to the impact on property values. I don't know if that exists, and if that's something that we have the ability to generate. That's one. The other is the effect of school closures and student loss due to those school closures, consolidation. I assume we don't have that readily available, or any report that we may, or study that we may have used to guide our discussions. So those two items would require some kind of work on the district's part to put that information together. And so with that, we would need some kind of board action to authorize you to put those together.
So do I need to make a motion?
You do need to make a motion. Just, really just for those two items.
Impact of property values and loss, student retention?
Yeah, and then the follow-up part of that is, I guess, what you want that to look like and how that's going to be given to us.
And let me go backwards. Ms. Chiji, when I don't remember what, maybe you talked about, in the December meeting, I was watching online, and you talked about when we opened West Avenue and you had the conversation about that change. Do we not have data, and I know that was a while ago, but do we not have that data to be able to speak to what that transition was, and did we lose students? Like, I'm just anecdotally, right? We had citizens come up here and say, people leave the district. Just kind of, is there data? And we've done this before, so.
You just want West Avenue.
I'm just,
She's looking for an example of what the impact is.
What does that look like, right? That's kind of what I'm looking for, and I don't know if that data is too old and we can't get it, because I'm not really, as I look at the executive staff, I'm not trying to make work, but I do want to understand.
Yeah, and Ms. Shelton, I'm just listening because I'm trying to think if we have that type of data to produce for you.
Or is it over the course of the next 30 days that the expectation is that there may be a question related to that when we get some of these things come through? So know what those answers are
because
over the course of the next month.
Because the property value component, so Ms. Lackhorn is watching. She's not just sitting in the room, she's just upstairs. And she says, I don't know that I can get you what you're asking for. And so we can try to get something. I don't know that I can get you that. If you vote to do it, all I can do is our best to provide what we have or can provide to you. That's available, because again, I don't know that we have, property values aren't really our jam. It's the Bexar County appraisal piece, right, Dan?
Yes, sir. Bear Appraisal is the one that sets the property values, whether it's yay or nay. They're the ones who assess property values every year. So we don't have any oversight over that.
Let me ask this. Do you think we could see if somebody in the district could look for any kind of case studies that exist out there?
Yes.
Regardless if they're here in San Antonio or not.
Right. That's my.
But if there's a resource that
if there's something out there that just kind of says, this is what tends to happen if you close a neighborhood school to the property values. Because when I moved to San Antonio, we got the list, right? Where the schools, and we picked the one and bought the house. So if the school's closed, what does that mean? And I know it may not be in our district, but just anecdotally in whatever case study.
Is that fair to spend a few minutes to think about? Sure.
We can,
see,
we can do that.
Okay.
Yes.
Rather, it won't be our data.
Right.
But give you, yeah.
Yeah, and the one thing I was thinking of, Ms. Shelton, and again, I'll have to sit with Susie and Dan tomorrow, is, we may be able, Dan, to work with the appraisal district to look at property values in that general area of West, and have they changed since it changed?
Yeah, I mean, we can do that research ourselves. I mean,
Right.
we'd have to put that report together.
Right, we may be able to look at that specifically to say that was the impact on that area.
And let me, in case, I would like to, I mean, I live in the neighborhood too, right? So it would impact my property value potentially. But I would like to be able to sit with my constituents and say, here's what we know, right? And your concern is your property value. Here's what we've seen in other cases like this, right? Your concern is people leaving the district. Here's what we've seen, and here's what we've experienced. I want us to be able to operate with facts and with as much data, so we're not operating out of emotion. People had great ideas. What are the how do we move people? Like, what does that look like? But I want us to have turned those things around, so we're not in a meeting like, oh, well, hadn't thought about that. I want us to think about them in advance and have some real data to support the answer and the next question. That's where I am. And then the last thing is, and I know there's got to be a plan, like where are we moving these babies?
Right, so,
Can I ask something?
yes.
Right quick, it won't take me long. Okay, West Avenue, wasn't that school repurposed?
Well, we're not, we can't discuss that right now.
No,
We-
I'm
we
just,
can't get
I'm
into-
just getting to a general,
Okay,
where
well,
you could get the
can you ask-
data.
Can you ask the direct question then?
Okay, okay. Can we take the data on West Avenue, because she was asking specifically for a school that was repurposed in our area, and do a comparison before and after? Could that give us the data?
Yeah, I think that's what Mr. Villarreal suggested he could go ahead and do. So,
Sorry,
So, Ms. Shelton, if you'd like to, we do have, because it is something that we don't have and we have to create, we do have to take action on that. so
Okay,
that
which one am I
directly to
doing an action for? I'm
your
sorry.
Property values.
Okay. I move, because it's a motion, right? I move
Yes.
that Dr. Micah and his executive leadership team pull together relevant case studies that articulate and demonstrate the impact on property values when a school is closed in a neighborhood.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second?
Second? Oh, then,
Got it again.
sorry.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, and your second request about, something about student loss related to it, or are we gonna? Okay.
I believe we do.
We'll look and see. If not, then
Yes.
we'll figure out how to get that on. Okay. Is that it? All right. Any other requests for reports, things on agenda, Ms. Chigi?
So mine is not to go on the agenda, just reports that I'd like us to have access to. Both of them are tables. I agree with what Ms. Shelton said about the reports by the Efficiency Committee, but I think they came in a format of half a page for each of the campuses and a graph, and if it was a table that said how much it's the total capacity, how much are they, so we could see it all in one, so we don't have to flip back and forth. It's all blah blah schools, 68 schools or whatever in the world. It's on its table, so we can look at it all at one time.
Dan?
Sorry.
Did you hear that? So I know that what the efficiency committee and again, I wasn't at all the meetings, so you're gonna.
Yep.
What we shared, the one pagers per school, was
Yes.
how it was shared with. Did we ever show a table?
Yes.
Showing every one of our schools side
Yes, sir.
by
I mean,
side
we showed them,
comparison?
we showed.
No, but
each
in
indiv-
like one table.
Oh, all of them
Yeah.
together? No. I
No,
mean,
because
we
they
went
were all
through the-
individual, right?
Yeah,
So
we went
that
through
the
all
committee was
individually.
looking at
Yes.
each individual because it
Each
wasn't.
individual school.
It had like 6 or 7 factors for
Yes.
each campus.
Yes, sir.
Because I don't think
It had the
we-
NAV score, it had.
Right, capacity, it
capacity.
had,
Yeah,
How many
and then we
students
had the
per-
operating
Right.
cost per student.
so it never got, it was never looked at other than individual, because each individual school stood on its own. It wasn't like we mashed them all together to look and compare in that
But as
manner.
we look at it.
Sure. So what you're saying is flipping back and forth through 68 or,
I mean,
however
I'm
many.
writing it down, making my own table.
Yeah.
Is it in,
I'm
is it in
assuming somehow
Excel?
we can probably merge that into a table.
Is it in Excel? Because if it's in
Hey.
Excel, I can do it.
Oh, Susie's not sitting here.
So
No,
that-
but my point is we should be able to somehow compile it.
Give it to Brandy, she can do it.
No, we can compile it into, what I'm trying to make sure is I'm clear on is, so you want 8 high schools, here they are.
Here they are down the
14 middle
side.
schools,
Yes.
here they are.
Yes.
Here's the elementaries, here they are, and in a table format to see. I think we can do that.
I mean, we can cut and paste, I mean, it's not.
Well, no, I mean, we're just taking that data
Yeah.
point and just saying, here's the NAV score, here they all are. Here is the
Right.
capacity, here's current enrollment. Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah.
It
we
helps
can-
us, it
yeah,
helps us to better know our campuses.
Sure.
And also,
We'll just
I
have to
know-
create that.
Yes, you can
Yep.
come up with a table.
I
Okay.
know there are plans for what's going to happen with these kiddos, but that helps us to see,
Mhm.
why did you choose to send them to this particular
Mhm.
school and so
Mhm.
forth.
Could you add another column on that and put the district each one is residing in, or where it's
Oh, our
located?
district.
Oh, like the SMD?
Oh, yes.
Yes, the SMD, and break it up like that. That
Yes,
way we
ma'am.
can compare.
We can do that.
Yeah, just know that some will have a slash.
Right.
Yes, because
Right.
they cross
Or
over.
multiple.
A
Right.
couple of schools are
Correct.
in multiple.
There's Susie.
All right, do you have any other
I do.
question? Okay.
The one that I asked for when they were talking, and
Okay.
that is the TAPR report. Rather than going to the link and having to put in each school and go to TEA and have all of that on one page.
Right.
So before we get there, you have a request for a report that we have to create. So I need a motion to create the efficiency report that you want.
Oh, I need a motion?
Yes.
Okay. So I make a motion to have a table created that details the data that was created by the efficiency committee, that was 1 page per campus, put in a consolidated table.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Can
Thank you,
I-
Ms. Thompson.
Friendly amendment to your motion that was presented to the efficiency committee because they didn't create it.
Right. Okay.
We accept that amendment. All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say nay. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, and then your second one?
The second one, I think you already have. Okay. So if you could just,
Yeah, just email that to us. All right, any other reports, agenda items for the evening or for future meetings? All right, seeing none, item 14, adjournment, and the time is 10:30. Thank you all.